Hello again, everyone, and welcome back. So, last night we filmed our penultimate interview with a man who I've known for many years, yet spend such little time with because paths hardly ever cross. Even on the shows, it's kind of difficult to actually sit down and have a great conversation with him, and that kind of showed in this interview for the simple reason that it went on for ages because we had so much to catch up on. But he is a man who has very few likes, uh, has worked with many great names on some amazing big things that some of you have probably attended at one time or another. He is our drummer. He is Matt Allen. We had a fantastic chat. As I said, there was a few name drops in there. I found out some really great, interesting facts about him, as well as we talked all things such as boxing, drumming in general, and his time and memories of working with us. And still to this day, he works with us on Forever Jackson. Enjoy this, and we'll be back for one more interview session coming up very soon. Don't forget to follow us on all the social media pages and subscribe to our YouTube channel. So here we are back with some more fun, wonderful people that make Forever Jackson happen and finding out a little bit about what makes them tick. And today, here he is, the one, the only, the man that is always arriving at the gigs first and always last to leave, mostly because he's so slow at setting up. But he is our main drummer. He is the man himself, Matt Allen. How you doing, Matt?
Yeah, I'm good, man. I'm okay. A little bit, yeah, a little bit kind of frazzled from homeschooling and stuff, but yeah,
Yes,
it's calming down a bit. It's calming down a bit.
absolutely. I feel your pain. I second your burden. And and we're just so that if anybody's not sure, today is Tuesday,
It
the
is.
9th. Kids went back to
Yes,
school yesterday.
they did. Yeah.
Both mine
So
are at school, and we were
yeah.
briefly talking about it just before we started this, but my
Mm.
God, the freedom, the freedom
It's
is
yeah.
real. It's
Yeah. I kind of when I dropped Meadow off at school, I did kind of skip back. You know, I felt
Yeah,
like
I was the
this
same. Like I had the kids' scooters and I was almost on them. Like because I was just like, this is the best day ever.
one on each foot. Come on.
Literally. Oh, it
Amazing.
was we were talking about it, like I got more done yesterday by
Mm,
lunchtime than I've done on any whole entire singular day this
yeah,
year.
yeah, yeah,
And you
yeah.
don't realize, like I was saying to you, I was concerned that I'd get no, still not that much done, and that I was actually just being a bit of a whinger about it. But
Mhm,
seriously, you can just
mm,
focus, you can
yeah,
concentrate, get stuff
yeah,
done. Oh, it's
yeah,
been amazing. I mean, you, how many kids you got now? 12?
yeah.
Like,
Something like that. I don't really know. No,
there's four that you know of, and then after that, there's sort of,
no, no, there's 5 that I know of, but
you've got
after that,
yeah. It's like a Panini sticker book. I've got all the shinies, and I got the really hard. I've got some swaps. Who wants? I can swap.
yeah, I've got some, actually, yeah, I have got some swaps if I'm
I
honest.
got two of them. Oh
Oh,
God.
yeah,
So
it's a juggling act, that's really what it's all about, isn't it?
yeah.
Homeschooling and making sure the kids are wherever they need to be and such like. But
So I'll tell you what, we'll get
definitely.
more into sort of how lockdown has been, and especially having all the kids at home, your entire Partridge family that you've got. So,
We can see
but let's
5
start
aside.
at the start.
Mm,
Let's get from let's go back to the beginning
okay.
and tell us a little bit how you first got involved in our show and how we met you and what
Mhm.
it was like in the initial stages.
Okay, cool. Well, I had a random phone call from Shane,
Yep.
um, just out of the blue.
Just to put
We'd
everybody, if
worked.
anybody's not sure who Shane is, Shane's our
Oh, sorry.
lead guitarist and also our touring MD.
Mm. And I'd done gigs with him before, covers
Yeah.
gigs, and little bits and bobs. So we knew each other pretty well. And yeah, he was like, "Oh, I need a drummer for a gig. I've done this gig a couple of times. It's a Michael Jackson tribute." And I was like, "Well, yeah, great, why not? Okay, that sounds really good. And I think there must have been a gig in the diary that he needed me for.
Sure.
Um, and yeah, I think actually the first time I met you was at the Farm Factory Studios in Welling. We had a little run through.
Oh
Hmm.
yeah. God, I remember the
And
rehearsal room days.
yeah,
Ah, yeah. We might need
well,
to do that again before we get back on stage.
we will. Yeah, I'll book one in a bit, mate. Um, and yeah, we just Shane obviously sent me over the tracks and stuff, and maybe some links to some short clippets of videos, just so I could get an idea of what's going on. And yeah, we had a little. We ran through the set, and it was Andy Saxton on Andy Saxton on bass,
Yes, I remember
Andy on
Andy.
bass,
Yes.
and yeah, and that's how I I got involved. Yeah, through Shane,
Hi,
basically. But
Andy, if you're watching at all, by the way.
yeah, hi,
Been a
mate.
while.
Yeah,
Hope you're good.
yeah, man. Hope you're well. Yeah.
Yes, so I remember you obviously coming in.
Mm.
Um, I can't remember. It would have been probably Don had would have done some shows and then maybe wasn't available.
Yeah.
Who
Well,
was our first original drummer.
it was kind of it's sort of, dare I say, it was kind of like a B band, really.
To an
For
extent,
whatever
yes, in
reason,
the early days.
we
So
were all new,
yeah, well,
all
because in the initial days, in the early days, our main MD, who's created a lot of the sort of the tracks that play
mm,
along with the
mm,
live musicians, so that for anybody who doesn't understand, so we have three musicians, sometimes four if the budgets allow. And then we have track that plays along with the show with extra musicianship. So it have percussion,
mhm,
maybe some
mhm,
synths, maybe some
mm,
effects and stuff. So it
mhm.
sounds, instead of it sounding like a 3 or 4 piece band, it sounds like a sort of 7 or 8 piece band instead.
Sure.
And
Yeah,
there's
yeah.
backing
Loads
vocals
going
and
on.
stuff on there too.
Mm,
And it's
mm.
kind of the way that a lot of shows, even the West End these days, tend to do things.
Yeah, absolutely.
Um, so, in the initial days, the guy who created those tracks, Lee Turner, was our main guitarist, and we both know Lee very well anyway,
Mm,
even from
mm,
before this show, of course.
mm, mm.
So he was the one who always said, "Yeah, Matt will be the last one to leave. It takes ages."
Yeah, thanks, Lee. Yeah.
Yeah. So um, it was Lee and Nick Drew playing bass,
Mm,
and then on drums was Don Bannister.
that's right. Yeah.
And then I started getting more inquiries for shows all over the place. And the three guys that I've just mentioned have all sorts of other things going on. So, for instance,
Mm,
Nick is a carpenter,
mhm,
and also was working for Blue Hat doing their set designs and stuff. Lee does all kinds of production,
mm,
music production for all kinds of things, events and adverts
mm.
and TV shows
He's
and
a
stuff.
very
Which
busy
is
boy,
whatever.
isn't he? Yeah.
He's a great guy and
Mm,
he's a very in
mm,
demand young man.
mm,
And then Don was also sort of doing all sorts of other things drumming. He was again a drummer that was working on all kinds of uh,
mm,
bands and shows and things and stuff. So I needed more people so that we
mm,
could say yes to more, of course. That's
mhm.
when Shane came in. And out of the initial guys that came in, Shane was just the one that stood out. And I was like, oh, Shane's just the man. And I said, Shane, who else do you know? And that's when you came in.
That's right. Yeah. Well, the guy he knew couldn't make it, so he
Well,
phoned me.
yeah. And then he phoned three others.
Three other guys. Yeah. Yeah. I
And
was the
then he
fourth
asked
guy.
his kids.
It was, yeah. It was strange because the phone. I didn't get a phone call till 10:30 at night. A panic.
Yeah.
Matt, I can't find
Matt,
no one else.
can you get to Wales in 34
Yeah.
minutes? But so Shane
Yeah.
came in and brought in other guys, and you came along.
Mm,
Eventually, people like Higgs came in,
that's right. Yeah.
and
Alex
other people
Preston.
over the years have come in and stepped in and out. When, say yourself,
Mhm,
you're our number one drummer and have been for
mm,
quite a few years now, our
mm,
first choice. And when you're not
mm,
available, obviously Pete steps in.
mm.
So yeah, so can you remember much about your first gig that you did with us?
Uh, it was in Wales.
Was it?
It
How
was.
random. I just threw that out. I didn't even know. I didn't even remember.
Oh man, I thought you'd done your homework.
No,
No,
mate. Well, I can't even remember from last week. So
it was in Wales, and I remember um, I don't remember a huge amount about it because we've done a gazillion shows
Yeah.
since then. Sorry, but what I do remember is we drove up the night before because it must have been quite an early start or something the next
Okay.
day. Um,
That's a
and I was
rarity
actually
that we do
rooming
that,
with,
to be fair.
yeah. Well, I was actually rooming with you because Shane was in with Andy, and I'd only met you once, and you were on a gig, and
Oh, so
I
did I
yeah
did I do a gig and then come over from that gig to this one?
mm, yeah,
Oh,
it was like 3 o'clock in the
right.
morning, and I was like,
Right.
oh, oh,
Nice
hi,
to
how you
meet
doing?
you.
Yeah,
Shove
yeah,
up.
yeah.
I need a bit
We're
more
just like,
space.
oh
That's
dear,
one of the things
and
that a lot of people who don't do this job or certainly don't work in this industry don't understand. You are regularly in a
mm,
room, sometimes staying over with a
mm,
whole bunch of strangers,
mm,
certainly in initial stages
mm.
of when you're
Yeah,
starting a new
absolutely,
thing. Um,
yeah,
so it,
yeah.
you know, has that ever been like a daunting thing for you? Has that ever put you off at times, or have you had like horror stories of things like that before?
I've been, I've been very very lucky with the people that I've worked with and the people that I've worked for. Um, you know, there's been every now and again I've done a dep in gig or some or a session, and I've come away thinking,
Nah,
man,
you're
these
all right.
guys were idiots. You know, I wouldn't want to spend the night. You know, I wouldn't want to
Yeah,
spend too
yeah.
much time with these guys. So yeah, I've been quite lucky actually in that respects.
It's funny because everybody always thinks it's really rock and roll, like, that we all
No,
go and get drunk and we're out really
no,
late and we don't bother going to bed or whatever.
no.
Sometimes that happens where we don't go to bed, not by choice, but like,
No, because the flight's at 4 and we don't finish till 3. And, you know,
oh, the
yeah.
pain. We'll get onto that, that's for
Mm,
sure,
mm,
certainly. But the
mm,
thing for me is like, it's so rarely like that rock and roll
mm,
element. We'll all chill out,
mm,
we'll have a few drinks, catch up a
mm,
bit, whatever, because we don't all live together, we don't see each
mm.
other every day,
No,
and
no.
we just see each other from gig to gig when it happens,
Mhm,
when we're allowed to. I think
mhm.
when we're abroad it sometimes gets a little bit more party-esque.
I mean, the thing is, yeah, we're far away from home, aren't we? And it's, I haven't got to drive the next day or whatever it might be.
Yeah,
I'll sleep
yeah,
on the plane. Don't worry about it. And to be honest with you, being abroad is pretty exciting. You're
yeah,
pretty hyped up.
but it's a
The,
bit of a
the the audiences are normally pretty good. The
yeah,
crowds are
yeah,
normally
they
pretty
are,
good.
yeah, they are.
I mean, probably like most other musicians, it takes a little while to wind down. Let's say when you've done the gig anyway.
Especially if
It's
it's
just
been
like,
really good audience, if that
mm,
atmosphere's there and it's buzzing, and there's that sort of that perk element, that sort of
mm,
novelty element when you're
mm,
abroad, because it's
mm,
that okay, well, you're getting really well looked after, everybody can't
mm.
do enough for you,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
it's that thing of right, well, when in Rome, we better act like it's rock and roll. Everyone's
Well,
treating us like it's rock and roll, so we better act good.
exactly. To be honest, I'm
Don't get
normally
me
with
wrong, we're not
Shane
throwing the
anyway.
TV through windows or anything, but like it's just that thing of like, for instance,
It's
a
just,
lot of our
yeah.
abroad gigs are quite often out in Spain,
Mm,
and
mm,
the main two gigs that we always do for Spain, which both for Norbert Sinuba,
mm.
um, which is a name, by the way, that's not a company or something. Norbert, if you're watching for any random reason, hope you're good, mate. Can't wait to see you. Um, but it's always rock and roll. It
Mm.
really is because it's a
The
massive audience. It's a
proper
great
gigs,
stage.
proper gigs. Yeah, yeah.
Um, we literally walk off stage to alcohol being put into our
Mm.
hands, and
Yeah, it's
we
horrible.
just kind of like, well, go on then, let's have some
Yeah,
fun. So
yeah,
it's always
exactly.
a bit
And
more fun.
to be honest as well, if kind of almost like we were touching on before, really, if you look at a gig day, it's really full on.
Yeah.
For a UK theatre gig or something like that, it's really full on. Sometimes I'll say goodbye to you at the end of the night, and it's like that's kind of the fourth word we've said because I don't see
Yeah.
you very much. You're in makeup. I'm sound checking. I'm eating. And then we finish, and you're doing meet and greets. I'm taking 5 hours to
That
pack
makes me feel
down.
like such a diva. It's the fourth word you've
No,
said to me. I say more to you on stage than I do
yeah,
throughout
yeah,
the rest of
you
the
do
day.
actually. We have a lovely conversation on stage. Yeah,
I'm not a diva. Anybody thinking it, I'm
No,
not a
you're
diva.
not.
What it is I
Absolutely.
just spend so long to make myself look like Michael Jackson, and Matt takes so long to set his drum kit up that we don't even cross paths until we're literally about
No,
to go on
it
stage.
could be days sometimes. We're just
I
wandering
might
around
see
the
him at
same
the sound
theatre.
check if I look backwards, and then
I think the thing is, um, yeah, if we're abroad, then it's kind of like, we're all together.
yeah, there's
You
a
know,
lot more of a thing, isn't it?
we're either told what time we've got to go to the airport, or we're told what time the car's coming to pick us up, and we're
Yeah,
all just together. And you know what? It's great to just to hang out. It's
really is.
what a great group of people, really. And that's kind of yeah. I don't want to go on a preaching thing or whatever, but um, that for me, that's 50% of the gig
Yes.
is being able to hang around with people, because there's a lot of hanging around.
You are
We
on
only
stage a hell of a lot more than you're on stage. I've said this
mm,
for as long as I've been working in entertainment, like
mm,
especially with shows.
mm,
You are on stage for normally a maximum of 2 hours,
mm,
say when we're doing a theatre show or something. But
yeah,
but that's 2 hours out of what can sometimes be a 20 or 24-hour day
mm,
or
mm,
more if you count, we
mm,
often will do a 24-hour round trip from my house to
mm,
Spain to do the show,
yeah,
back to my
mm,
house.
yeah,
And
yeah,
then, and that's quite often, like I said, we're without going to bed the night before if I've done a gig, and then
hmm
not going to bed that night after that
that night,
gig.
yeah,
So you're
yeah,
you're around people when you can be a bit tetchy, you're certainly
hmm
tired, it gets a bit
hmm
delusional, and
hmm mm,
but that's why you have to have those right people around you
yeah,
to get you
yeah.
through what
It,
is
it,
quite a
it,
grueling schedule.
it is. It's a little family. We're a little family of people that have got to spend time together. And if you again, we've all been very lucky in this setup. Uh, we don't have a bad apple. I don't think we do anyway.
No, we don't.
Everyone that's come in has been just great, straight off. Just yeah, man. Everyone respects each other, and it's good. It's good. It's good fun.
Well, the
Yeah,
other real good thing to sort of just before we move on, the real
mm,
sort of acknowledgeable thing of that this clearly works for us and we clearly do have a good team is the fact that nobody ever really moves on. Everybody
mm.
still is doing this. Like you've been working with us for it must be 6, 7, 8 years now at
It's
least
probably
that
nearly
you've been
8 years, to
running.
be fair. Mm,
And Shane's been with us even longer than that.
yeah,
And people
yeah,
like Jen and Sink,
mm,
who have been with me since late 2008. So
wow,
and they're
yeah,
still not going anywhere. They may not
yeah,
actually dance on the shows as often
mm,
as I'd love them to, mostly because hip hop pop's such a huge success.
yeah,
So they're so busy with that.
yeah,
But it's random. Like we don't see
mm,
each other that often, all of us. We only see
no,
each other at gigs more often than not. We'd love
mhm,
to see each other outside of work, but
mm,
just everything
it's
else is going on and
yeah,
obviously
yeah, yeah,
work in general. But when we
mm,
do, it's like
mm.
we weren't really away. We just get on,
No,
we just have fun. And it is, you look forward to it. So
absolutely, I do, man. I get in the car, we'll load up the car, get in the car, drive to the gig, and I'm thinking, I can't wait. I'm often there first anyway, because
yeah,
I've got loads of gear to set up. Um, and I love the whole thing, the whole day, the whole everything that comes with it. Um,
yeah.
even packing down sometimes is fun.
Well, it's a wind down, isn't it, for you?
Mm,
So
yeah,
yeah.
exactly.
So
So
tell us a bit about, because obviously not everybody chooses to be a drummer. A lot of people,
mm,
like when they're young, they think I want to be the front man or I want to be the lead guitarist and stuff like that. But we all know so many amazing drummers over the years that have been almost as big as the front men to some extent.
mm, mm, mm.
What was it about drums that made you want to be a drummer?
Well, I don't want to sound too cheesy about it, but the honest truth is that I didn't choose the drums. The drums chose me.
Oh
I
my word,
I
that's a
don't know
lot. I
anything
love
else,
that.
mate. That is, I don't know anything else. I
So
was,
how did that? So you've got to elaborate a bit on this.
mm,
How did the
mm.
drums choose you? Come on.
Well, my dad's a drummer, you see.
Oh
So
wow. Okay.
uh,
How's that
it's all
never
I've ever.
been mentioned ever in the time I've known you?
Well, you
By the way,
probably never met my
my dad's
dad. He
a
would have
drummer.
told you.
I don't see
um,
you enough. That's why.
no.
Just shout it in between the songs. Did you know?
Yeah, so my dad was a drummer. He doesn't really, he doesn't play so much now. And when I was a kid, my weekends were going to the local social club, pub,
Okay.
whatever.
So you used to tour
And
around with him, like,
it was, yeah. I mean, it was just Saturdays and Sundays, but there was, my mum would go, and I was like 2 or 3, and I'd go, and yeah, but, my mum would tell me I'd just focus on my dad. Just zoned out, and then by the time I was around 3 years old, maybe just over 3 years old, I could play. There was nothing I could just.
no
I
way.
don't remember learning. I don't remember any. It's all in the baldy. It's
Yeah.
on the back. I don't. Yeah, I don't remember learning. I remember practicing. I remember trying
Yeah.
to get good at what I was doing, but I have snapshots in my head of my first ever gig. Um, but yeah, I wasn't much older than 3, and that's the first memory I have
Wow.
playing on stage.
So
So,
you sang at your first ever gig. You was 3 years old.
mm,
That's amazing.
mm.
And that was obviously just fitting in for your dad for a moment.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
While he
just
popped
used
to
to
the
get
loo.
up and yeah, yeah. Well, he couldn't at that point because my legs weren't long enough to touch the pedals. So
That's
I had to sit on his
incredible.
lap. But yeah,
Wow, what a
um,
story.
and then and that was my life every weekend up until really I kind of started taking over from him when I was about 11 or 12, and
So
then
did
that
you
was.
then take his place on this band?
Well, he would do lots of different bands, kind of like a little bit like I would, but there
Yeah.
was way more gigs back then, so there was
Yeah,
lots of
yeah.
stepping out and stuff. And eventually, I was kind of mature enough, let's say, just to hold the night, just to play the night. I couldn't drive, so my dad would drive me there.
So
I
how
had
old were you
drums and
when
stuff.
this started, when you started taking over?
About 11, 12, something like that. I could do the
Wow,
whole
still
night.
that young. That's
Mm.
incredible.
But I've been playing for 8, 7, 8, 9 years at that point.
Yeah.
So it was, this year, well, pardon me, last year was like a terrible anniversary because I'd been playing for 40
Oh,
years
yeah.
and we done one gig thanks to you, but
Yeah,
yeah, it was a bit of a strange way to celebrate 40 years
absolutely.
of gigging. Anyway, so yeah, that's how I started. I don't really. It's strange because I do hear, there's loads of guys I love to watch playing.
Yeah.
There's loads of guys that I know that are great, and it just amazes me when I hear, well, I was about 15 or 16, and I didn't really, and I'm thinking, you're incredible. I've got like 30 years on you, and I'm standing back going, man, how does he do that? And I'm, but it's different, isn't it? It's different for different people. I just
Yeah.
learned
So did you have any lessons at all? Did your dad have any input on your drumming?
in the early days, I guess so. But like I say, my earliest memory was on the stage. I don't remember. I,
Incredible.
I don't remember anything. I just took it all in. I guess when I was before I could talk. When I was a baby, I must have taken it all in. My mum said I just zone out, and it was my dad that I was. You know.
That's so cool. That's so cool.
Yeah,
So,
it's
I
crazy.
mean, that's blown my mind. I had no idea. Number one, that your dad was a drummer, but number two, that you started drumming at 3 for your
Mm,
dad on stage. That's
mm.
incredible.
Yeah, you would have thought I would have been a bit better by now, but
Well,
man, I thought you'd
you
only been
haven't,
playing for 4 years.
you haven't got the attention span to be better.
Oh, I'm just off for a week. Hang on.
Yeah, that's hilarious.
Mate.
So, so it's always been drumming for you. Outside of drumming, what else? I mean, you obviously in this day, as you said, back in the day, there were so many more gigs. People used to be able to gig regularly through the midweek as well as the weekends.
That's right. Yeah.
Um, nowadays it tends to be more of a weekend job for a
mm,
lot of
mm,
people.
mm,
Certain times of the year that changes, but for
yeah,
the vast majority, a good 9 months at least of this year, of any year, should I say,
mm,
perhaps not this year,
yeah,
we, we work at the weekends for the most
mm,
part. So
mm,
outside of drumming, what do you do through the week? Is it just drumming? Is there other
mm.
things you do?
Yeah, I mean, there's been a whole bunch of things I've done throughout the years. When I first left school, I just had a load of crap jobs that I didn't want to do. But you've got to do
Like
something.
what? Tell us some of the jobs that you did.
Oh man, the classics. I worked at Sainsbury's. There was one job I was making belts.
Belt.
That you wear
Yeah, yeah,
around your
yeah.
waist. Um, what else is there? Oh, filling car batteries. Just
Filling
but
car batteries.
yeah, man. It was
Wow.
just doing
Done
really
it all.
the th- the thing is it's kind of bad enough when you're that that kind of age anyway. You're a
Yeah.
bit like, oh, this is all rubbish or whatever. But it's even worse when you can go out on Saturday and Sunday and earn double what you did Monday to
Yeah.
Friday, and you
Doing
go,
something you love.
and you go, well, I've got to try my best to do whatever I can to make this work out. Um, but for now, obviously there's family involved, so that takes up a lot of time, because I kind of have to have a. Well, I don't have to. I need to do what I need to do during the week because, like you said, we're not around at the weekend, and
No,
that's
that's
when the
true.
kids are around. So you've got to be respectful of your partner, whoever, whatever. You've got
Yeah,
to
of
you've got to
course.
pull your weight, basically.
I think in this business, and I've said it for a long time, that to do what we do, we have to have such a great support system behind us if
Mm,
we're going to have the other things in life, like have
mm,
kids, have a
mm,
family,
mm.
have a relationship.
It's
Because
very it's if you're not around people that understand that, then it's impossible.
well, we've all probably had relationships and things that have broken down for the simple reason that when you're available, they're not, and vice versa.
Mm, mm.
Um,
It's a
so
very
we
unsociable thing that we do, isn't it?
It really
Mm,
is.
mm,
People's relaxing time for probably 90% of this country is the weekend.
mm,
That's when they let their hair down, relax,
mm,
and want to spend time with their loved ones. For us,
mm.
that's when we put our suit on
That,
and go to work.
that's when we
Like
can
get a
earn the
little
money.
trilby hat
Exactly.
on, the
Mm.
suitcase. Bye bye, darling. Like, in certain times of the year, for instance, kids' holidays for me
Mm.
specifically, any school holidays,
Yep.
I'm gone for
You're
dust.
you're gone. Mm,
I because it and it's one of those things where you have to be on the same page as your partner because they
mm,
have to understand that that's an opportunity to make up for when things are quiet. So, for instance,
mm, mm,
January, February, we all
mm,
know, even March these days to an extent,
mm,
we all
mm.
know it's going to be quiet. It's going to be
Yeah.
destitute to some
Yeah.
extent.
Yeah.
I will do an average January, February to combined, I'll do maybe 10, somewhere
Mm,
between 10 and 15 shows
mm,
combined,
mm.
which I've always thought was pretty decent.
That is
On a
good
normal
actually.
January and February, obviously
Yeah.
not so much this year.
Mm.
Um, but that does not pay the bills. That will not
No.
go
No.
far enough
No.
to, feed everyone and keep the roof over our heads.
No.
So you have to have somebody so that when it gets to, in my case, to 6 weeks holiday, like even this year,
Mm.
August has already got 16 shows confirmed for me.
Cool.
Um, because it's just, well, it's
Mm.
holiday parks. I'll be
Yeah.
touring around holiday parks.
Yeah.
So on a normal August, I'll do anything between 20 and 25 from
Mm.
previous memory.
Mm.
So I'm just not around.
No.
But it's understood that I need to go and do that because that
Yeah.
money then gets us through the rubbish part of the year, or
Yeah.
certainly helps out with things like Christmas and stuff and things like that.
Yeah.
So
Exactly.
yeah, you have to have somebody, you have to have that support system massively.
mm,
So, and also you miss, you're second to this, but you miss so many occasions. There's an element of a sacrifice of your social life.
mm.
Like you'll miss people's weddings, people's
Well,
birthdays.
you've probably experienced this yourself. It kind of really gets to a point where your mates don't really ask anymore because they know what the answer is. I mean, I'm I'm a big fight fan. I like the boxing,
Yeah, you do.
uh,
We'll
and
get on to that
uh,
as well.
and fortunately for me, the boxing's on a Saturday night. Why it
Normally, a
can't be on a Monday
ridiculous time of clock
afternoon?
as well.
uh,
Normally, if it's from the States as well, if it's live from the States at a time that you can actually get home and watch it.
yeah, yeah. Well, it just yeah, it's just one of those things. It's like you're about on Saturday. We're gonna get the bit. It's like no, I'm
Well, this is
working.
the
Yeah,
thing as
it's
well.
cool.
It's you again going back to what I was saying. You can't say no because you're saying no to a payday. And for
Oh
some
yeah,
people, there's no sick pay, there's no
no,
holiday pay in this industry. You
no.
go and do. Well, it's self-employed for a reason. You can't
Mm,
like put in, "Can I have tomorrow off, please?" and then ask yourself, and then you go, "Yeah, sure," but there's no pay because
mm,
if in a normal club somebody said, "Oh, can I have this weekend
mm,
off?" They go, "Yeah, cool," but there's no pay.
mm,
More people would probably go, especially in this day and age, would probably just go, "Okay, I'll work then."
mm, mm,
I've missed weddings. I actually missed. This is going to make me sound so bad, but I couldn't get home from a holiday park gig, mostly because of a ferry booking. We were stuck out on the Isle of Wight. We were doing 3 shows. It was the middle show. And because I couldn't get home and because of contracts and stuff as well, I missed the birth of my first child. I
um,
missed Scarlett being born. So Jen and
wow.
Sync were there, not there, but with me.
Oh, I
That
see.
would have been weird. So we'll video it.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
but
Yeah.
yeah, I'm because of work because I couldn't get out of it, and it's
I,
one of
I
those
was
things.
sorry. I've just remembered. I was with you on a gig when you were expecting Stanley,
Yes,
and we that was a two-nighter. I can't remember where it was, but it was
yeah,
corporate something.
yeah.
And there was a few moments there. I think it was either after sound check or just before we were going
It
on.
was
And
Christmas. It was Christmas down in Weymouth.
Weymouth, that's it.
And
Yeah.
Gemma, my partner, was my. I always call her my other half. That's weird. My
Mm,
partner,
mm,
she was due with Stanley,
mm.
and it was a Christmas gig. It was like something like the 22nd or 23rd. She was due
It was
with
two nights.
Stanley about
Mm,
mid-January,
mm,
I think, and
mm.
she was phoning me going, "I think something's not right," and I'm like, "Oh my
Yeah,
god,
yeah, yeah,
oh my god, oh my god."
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I remember that now. Yeah.
It made me laugh because you were on the phone. It must have been just after sound check. You were on the phone. Well, I could hear something going on. I'm thinking, man, well, we're going on in like a couple of hours here. I don't know what's going on. And then you got off the phone. You just turned and went, yeah, it was wind, and just went off and finished your makeup. And I
Yeah,
was like, okay,
yeah.
cool. Well, okay, everything's fine.
But you miss so much and things like that. People don't always necessarily realize how much goes into this. A lot of people think it's just a 45 minute or it's a couple of hours or whatever, but there's all of the travel, all of the preparation, all of the show stuff, all of the sacrifice, all of the things that you miss, all of the rehearsals. It's a tough job, and I've always said that obviously it's a very competitive market, but if it was easy, everybody would be doing it. Absolutely everybody. And that's why it's not everybody doing it because it's not
No,
as easy as maybe some people think it is. So,
no, no.
yeah. So, you've obviously gigged with us for quite a while now.
Hmm.
Do you have like a favorite gig, one that really stands out, whether it's a one off, whether it's somewhere we do regularly? Yeah, tell us about it.
Obviously, I got the questions through on the email,
Yes.
and it gave me a little time to think about it actually. And I've seen some of the other interviews you've done,
Okay.
and that the gigs that have been mentioned that I've been on, for example, I've gone, oh yeah, yeah, you're right, yeah, actually, yeah, that was great. Oh, I remember that was right. And but there's one. I'll keep it pretty brief as well, as brief as I can. there was one gig that hasn't been mentioned yet, I don't think anyway, and it was in Monmouth, Monmouthshire.
Yes,
Now,
I know what one you're
now,
going to talk about.
now, the thing is with this gig, and this, I'm going to put this down as one of my favourite gigs, and there's a couple of reasons for this. That really the first reason is that it it kind of it kind of had all the red flags of not being a very good gig, and I don't mean that horrible. I don't, hey,
I
and
know
if anyone from that thing
exactly
is
what you
watching,
mean. Yeah.
sorry, I don't mean that.
No, no,
What I
no, no,
mean
no,
is,
no, 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 no. It was a
you know,
strange place.
yeah.
Not
Well, and the
Monmouth,
thing
but a
is,
strange place for a stage to
just
be,
for
shall we say?
because the thing is that we were on different gigs, I should imagine, but we were probably both out the night before.
Yeah.
It was a Saturday, it's like you've got to get to Monmouth for like midday or something. It's like, oh, I'm gonna get out of bed. I'm like, oh, I've had like 3 hours sleep. Now I've got to drive for 3.5 hours, and then you kind of know a little bit of what it's about, and then you turn up and you're like, okay, it's on a car park.
Yeah.
The stage looks okay. There's mics about and fold back. But I don't know, it's a bit tired and whatever. And we set up a sound check and everything was fine. There was no
Yeah.
problem. But it it, it just turned into an amazing gig because I remember, I mean, my gear must have already been up on stage from the sound check, I guess. And there were other bands and acts on before us, local. And this was the other thing. Oh, there's a few local bands on. And I'm thinking, man, this is a long drive. This
Let
is,
me fill people in before we go too far. So this
Of
was a
course.
festival that we did in Monmouth. Now this festival lasts 10 days. It's a 10-day festival, and we were the final act, the headlining act on the last night. And this was booked for a really great guy who we still do stuff with today. And he's a good friend of mine, and a guy called Pete Tobit. And he said it's going to be this, and yeah, it'd be a great gig. And I was like, I've no reason to doubt it. And like you, I pulled up and I was like, oh, we're in a car park. Makes sense. Lots of space for people to stand. They must know what they're doing. This has been going on for 10 days. But you question it. You do question it. You're thinking, this is odd, because also there's cars still parked around, like pop into the supermarket or whatever.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, they were. Yeah, it was just
And
Safeway
backstage was
next
all
door.
cool and nice. There were sofas, from what I can remember. It was quite comfy. Bearing in mind,
Yeah, it
obviously,
was
this is a
lovely.
festival and outdoor setup to some extent. And I remember walking through the town. It's a real quaint little town.
That's
And
right.
we've even done Monmouth Theatre before. I remember doing a gig at Monmouth Theatre before.
That's right.
So, yeah, I remember thinking, this is 50-50 how this is going to go. Not quite sure yet, but I know what you mean. We got out on stage. Oh my God.
It was, and the thing is that
Mental.
the thing is more so for yourself, but maybe because I was just really tired and whatever else, I didn't really go out the front. I had
Yeah,
no reason to go out the front. You can't. You're
I
kind of
can't, obviously.
confined to
Yeah.
your makeup. You've got to be where
Keep
you've
the
got to be.
surprise a little bit. Yeah, the initial.
No one cares who I am. I don't even really care who I am. I can just walk around. I can just go and have a pee and have a drink and whatever.
Yeah.
Who cares who I am? And but for this, for whatever reason, the car was maybe parked at the back or something,
Yes.
and I normally go and have a kip. I'm really cool. I'm really rock and roll.
Yeah.
10 minutes before the gig, and we walked up to the side of the stage, and I'm thinking, this is getting pretty busy. This is, this is sounding busy. And holy moly, it was just, we got up on stage and I was like, well, about 5 hours ago, this was just a car park
Yeah.
with a couple of cars. The other thing I remember was, man,
There was
was a
people all
bridge.
over. They'd closed the whole square off, and there were
it was
people
like
on the bridge.
on a
where the road
bridge. And
was.
it was like, I thought there were hills over there, and now there's
Yards
just
and
lots of
yards
people.
away, people up there. There was people
There was
covering
thousands.
the roads, and
There was thousands of people.
just thousands of people.
Just one of those gigs where you get up and you just go, from the second the house lights went down, as we say, and the intro started, it was like,
Yeah, And the other thing
They
was,
were
I
up
don't
for it.
remember them, with no disrespect to whoever had been on before us, I don't remember hearing a huge amount of noise
No.
beforehand. And I was backstage the whole time. And I
Mm,
remember listening to the other bands and going, yeah, quite cool, but not
mm,
hearing like this massive audience, thinking it's going to be like a local festival where there
mm.
might be 1,000 people there or whatever. But getting on
I was
stage and
thinking
going,
less than
yeah,
that. I was like, man, if there's
hundreds,
500 people here,
yeah,
we're gonna.
20.
This is
But I
this is gonna
remember
be pretty
getting
good.
on stage and going, there must be 20,000 people in front of us right now.
It was just.
Easy.
I posted some photos on Facebook the next day. I had my camera down by my kit, and I was
Yeah.
like, "Ooh, I'll take a little one there." And I looked back at the photos, and I was like, this almost looks like the biggest gig I've played, and I've been lucky. I've done some big gigs.
Yeah.
Anyway, that was one of my. I think I've chosen that one because I didn't think it was going to be like that, and I've chosen that one because it was great, but
Yeah.
also as a bit of an example to myself. Don't ever think
How
you know
bad?
what it's going to. You know,
I'd totally forgotten about that gig. But it was amazing.
it was
My
great.
memory's horrific. I'm not gonna lie. My memory, I can barely remember like a week to 2 weeks ago. It's so bad. Well, I've probably done
Well,
some gigs that have been so good, and I've just blanked them
you
for
just
whatever
forgotten them.
reason. So bad,
I
and I
th- yeah,
apologise
and the
if
thing is,
that's ever happened.
I think it would have been quite easy for me to say that massive gig we did in Dubai. I mean, that was going to be great. We're in Dubai. Hey, it's going to be good.
That was a cool gig.
Whenever we go abroad, chances are it's going to be great.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But for me, that one was just great because it was a surprise as well. And I think even after we finished, there was a disco music going on over the PA or something, and people were still there. They didn't really leave,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
we were just standing around on the stage.
It
And
was.
there was probably
Yeah.
fireworks and stuff. It
There
was
was,
just
yes, there was like
great
a sort of
vibe.
a ceremony to the end of it. I mean, 10 days solid. That's every day, like not 10 weekends, 10 days, including the weekdays around
Mm,
it, up
mm.
until that point in the middle of summer. That's a
And
long festival. So
they
they
were
clearly
just
supported it.
ready
Yeah, they
when we
clearly
went on.
supported it.
They were ready for us, and I mean, we're we're great. We always put on a good show, but it felt really good, and everyone
Yeah,
that again, kind of touching on what we said earlier. Everyone in the crew was great. Everyone there was really great, and that makes a big difference as well.
it does,
So
definitely does. So outside of
yeah,
Forever
good.
Jackson, then obviously you've played a lot of shows.
Mm,
You've played with a lot of different musicians and stuff, and a lot of different venues. What's some of
mm.
the standout moments as a drummer outside of FJ?
I think it's probably some stuff I did. Um, I'm trying to think if it. There was definitely some stuff before in my younger years. When I was in my early 20s, I was very lucky to um, get a couple of fairly big gigs for what they were in the UK at that time.
Okay, with anybody
And
that we know or recognise?
well, one of the gigs that stands out for me was Party in the Park at Hyde Park, and
Okay,
and and that for me at the time, going from playing maybe covers in a pub or a function or something, or maybe even something a little bit bigger, to walking out to, I don't even know what it was, 90,000, 100,000 people,
wow.
was a big scary experience. It was a big leap,
You
a
must have
big
been with
step.
like a mainstream act. Who was you playing
Uh,
for?
I did about almost I think maybe 2 years for Martine McCutcheon,
Wow.
uh,
Okay.
who was Tiffany in
Yeah,
EastEnders.
I was just gonna say, cry.
Well, that's why I got the
It's as good
gig.
as my impression gets. Yeah.
That's the only reason I got the
Why?
gig. I didn't have any hair. All right, mum. Yeah, so
Why? You got to go up on your knees in the rain.
yeah.
Why?
Um, so I was lucky to get that gig. I had a few other bits, um, sort of off the side of doing that as well, because the MD I was working for, he basically had all the big pop things at that time. So every now and again it would be, oh, can you jump in for this? Can you do a TV for that?
Come
some
on,
stuff,
do a few name drops. You know you
some
want it.
stuff
Tell us who it is. Tell
for
us some
her.
people. I know you used to
I
drum for Little Chris.
Yeah, that was slightly different. The stuff I did for a guy called Mike Stevens was, so I was doing Martin McCutcheon, and I had to go and do a few things for. Unfortunately, he's not with us anymore. Unfortunately, Stephen Gately from Boyzone, he had
Yeah.
a single, a solo thing out. There was a young kind of hip hop kind of guy, Justin something. There was some TV. It was all the, if you remember, CD UK, that
Yeah.
era. I was kind of.
So if we Googled and searched, trailed all over YouTube for like CD UK performances, we might find you.
If you put anything in for Martine McCutcheon, you know, kind of like 20 years ago, then you'll see this little shiny head at the back.
You ever had hair?
I did once, but it didn't suit me.
You clearly didn't get on with it. Yeah. Amazing. Wow.
So that for me, obviously that's a standout gig because it was so huge.
Yeah.
I remember coming back that early evening because it was an afternoon thing. You know, there's loads of people on it, party in the park, and it was on telly, like some of the other things had been. And it wasn't until I saw the replay I realised how many people were there, and it was like, you know, when they do that helicopter thing, and it's like,
Yeah.
and there were some big gigs. I remember doing oh yeah, you know what? Actually, we did another one of these pop things, Wembley Arena. It's all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So and you know, it was great. I enjoyed it. So and I did play for. I did quite a few years with Little Chris, which was I'll never forget those times. The thing with Chris was um, that was the first session for me that felt like a band.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So for people that don't know, I mean, it was a few years ago, but Little Chris, he was on a reality TV show with Gene Simmons. You know, it was when the school kids had to make a
Yes.
band.
Yes.
I can't really remember what it was called. Rock
No,
something.
but I can picture it happening. I can picture some of the footage in the episodes.
Yeah, and I remember watching it. I remember being at home watching it and watching Chris and thinking, well, that he's going to be a star. You know, he's just so cocky and, you know, but lovable. And the phone rang. The phone rang. You know, a friend of mine. Oh, you know, I'm working with this producer. He is now going to do this guy, Little Chris, is going to do his album. Have you heard of him? And I was like, oh yeah, okay. And then yeah, we went. I went and met him, and we just got on. So he was only a kid, you know, he was really
Yeah.
young, but he was just full of energy and just yeah, what a great guy. And then I had a bit of a break from that because of management and stuff and whatever. And
Right.
then the phone rang again. What you know? Are you busy? What you doing? We're going to Canada. And then you've got your gig back basically. And then I
Amazing.
spent another few years with him, and then Shane.
Just
From
gonna say, I'm sure Shane used to play as well with Little
yeah,
Chris.
yeah, he was right. I'm kind of unfortunately, really, but he was right at the back end of everything.
Ah.
We really didn't do that many shows together, but the ones we did were great. I mean, we did another thing that sticks out for me, remembering some of the bigger gigs with Little Chris. We supported McFly on their Up Close and Personal tour.
Wow.
We were out for 6 weeks with those guys, and that was just mayhem.
Did you get to spend much time with them? Yeah.
Yeah, it was just us and them.
Because
So,
they look real down to earth.
oh, they're great. Yeah, they're great. I mean, you know, I wouldn't be an idiot and say, "Oh yeah, oh, man, we're friends," and it wouldn't.
Yeah.
They wouldn't know me now. You know, they wouldn't recognise my face or anything. But it was just a great laugh because it was just us. There was only three of us with Little Chris and them and their crew,
Yeah.
and we kind of just well, we kind of had to, even though Chris was signed, we kind of had to fend for ourselves a little bit. They let us get on their catering. It probably sounds a bit businesslike, but we just became friends,
Yeah.
and to spend, it was pretty much 6 weeks with not very many breaks. I think I had maybe 2 or 3 days at home
Wow.
during that time, and it was a lot of, all the travel lodges started to look the same. Let's say that, and
Yeah.
it was good fun. That wasn't with Shane. That was with another mutual friend we have that was MDing at the time.
Okay.
So that sticks out in my mind as something that I'll always have fond memories of those times. And Chris was a little rascal, but there was always a story to tell. There was always a story to tell.
I remember playing his song as a DJ. I remember
Checking it
checking it
out.
out, wasn't it? Checking you out.
Checking it out.
That's the
Yeah.
one. Yeah.
Mm.
I remember playing that. Sort of, I used to play that at Jumping Jacks.
Mm.
Yeah.
Mm.
These
And we'd always finish with that song. Obviously, that was the biggest
is
hit.
the big
There
one.
was some other great songs on that album, but we'd always finish with that one. And we played. I remember one gig we played. It was the Hard Rock Cafe or whatever it's called in London, and I think they let way more people in than they should have done. It was just bonkers. Kids were like, sort of, it was crazy, just crazy. But he loved all that. He lived it, and yeah, great. It's very different from doing a session for Martin McCutcheon or Stephen Gately, because it's like you meet them and they're nice, and hi, how you doing? And you just do what you do.
Sure. Yeah.
It's great. I wouldn't, I'm not dissing it by any respects. But that was the first thing that I just felt like, man, this feels like a band. This is
I can
great.
get that though, because like we said, it's that camaraderie, and when you do get that, you really cling on to it, because
Yes.
it makes the day so much better, so much easier. It makes the working experience so much more enjoyable. And I've always said that this is entertainment, and if we're not entertained, why should anybody else be? So if we're not feeling it, and then by the we've had several hours of not feeling it because of either the people we're around, the environment, the venue, whatever it might be, when we then get on stage, we've somehow got to switch it on. That can be difficult if you've had a rough day. If you've had a great day, that's just the cherry on top, the bit on stage. That's
Absolutely.
the icing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Our last gig together, October 31st, Halloween at Box
Halloween.
Park. And Box Park's a wicked venue. It's
Isn't it?
massive. And we will be back. That's guaranteed. We're working towards that at the moment. And
I love that gig.
it was a
I
wicked
enjoyed that gig so much.
I bet you did, for many reasons. Obviously, one of being the fact that what the state of the world was that year, and the fact that we finally got to get on stage and do something together.
Yeah.
I did too, and it was for what was a socially distanced and really following the rules, like the venue and the audience. Yet there was still such a wicked atmosphere in there.
Wasn't it? It was just, and I was talking to someone about it, maybe a couple of people about it, but I don't know whether you had this. I'm going to interview you now. But normally when we're doing a gig, so we'll get to second to last song or something like that, or we're coming back out for the encore, and it starts off, and I'm playing around. I'm thinking, my thoughts then are KFC.
Might get gangsters, yeah. Yeah.
Or no, I know where. No, I could stop for a Costa, and then that's normally what's going on in my.
Like most people, towards the end of their working day, you're going through the same
no
motions.
No different.
Dinner.
But the difference with this gig was, unlike the last gig I did in last March, the difference with this gig was we've only got 2 more songs left, and I don't know when I'm going to get the chance to do this again.
Yeah, because officially that day they'd announced we were going back into lockdown starting
At 8 o'clock that
midweek.
night.
The,
Yeah, they
the
said
start of
on
November.
Wednesday, when it was,
Exactly.
and that was my thought. We were 1 or 2 songs away from the end, and everyone was enjoying it. We were all enjoying it. Obviously, we
Yeah.
always do anyway, man. It's always great. And I'm looking around thinking, I don't know when I'm going to get to do this again. And for the first time in a long time, don't take this the wrong way, I didn't want it to end. I
No,
wanted
never
to
in the
do
wrong
another
way.
5
I mean,
songs.
I
I would have done it again.
I regularly, like, bearing in mind I do this is my main job. I don't really do much else around it. Well, I do now, off the back of the last, last 12 months. But it's my main job, so I'm doing it week in, week out, and that was actually gig number 8 in 9 days. I managed to fill, because it was the half term, and holiday parks were open and entertainment was allowed, so I was doing a lot. And I'd come home from a gig the night before and then gone on to this one. And we had Richard with us as well, who was production. And Rich is a guy who has tech with us from the very early days and hadn't done one for a while. So it was really nice to have him on as well. And he'd been great in all the build up. He'd looked after all of that side of it with the production crew that was there, that had been booked in.
Yeah.
And I just remember
seamless
thinking,
as normal. Seamless.
Yeah. And I just remember thinking, God, I'm going to miss this so much. Because my mindset was, we're going back into lockdown. And my mindset literally was like, I don't think we're coming out of it until Easter, was my mindset. And lo and behold, we ain't going to gig until middle of May at the earliest, as it currently stands.
And that's, I think the difference there is that, again, playing whatever gigs we did last March, not knowing we weren't going to play again for however many months, is very different to knowing you're not going to be able to do what you love for a long time.
Yes, very much.
For someone like me as well, and I know, we've joked about it in the past, but for someone like me, I hit stuff. I'm very, I'm pretty laid back. I'd like to think I'm pretty laid back, but maybe it's because I whack stuff really hard.
Maybe, yeah.
And then when I'm not allowed to,
God, your poor kids. I'm kidding. He doesn't hit all of them, just one of them.
No. There's the little one can't run as fast. So
well, yeah.
It's not. There's so many things, isn't there? It's not just being on stage. It's not just having people clap when For me, it's the physical. It's doing it.
It's the release, yeah.
And I've struggled.
Bless you.
Struggled, man.
So I'll tell you what, we're going to take a few minutes out of the normal questions and we're going to do what I've done with everybody else and do a quick fire round. So as you mentioned earlier, I sent all the questions through to you except the quick fire questions. Now, there are some that have been repeated on each of these that I've done with the previous interviews. And there's some that I've kind of tried to pick that's a bit more maybe specific for yourself. So I'm going to give you the length of a dance break to answer as many questions as possible. And we'll see how we get on, shall we? So are you ready?
What dance break is it?
It's going to be Leave Me Alone.
Okay, I'll wait for the cue.
Yeah. Wait for Lee to tell you in your ears.
No, that's a Shane one.
Oh, it's a Shane one now. Okay, right.
Okay, dance break, Leave Me Alone. Go on.
Go on, son.
All right, mate.
So here we go then. I'll tell you when we're starting. So Matt Allen, your time starts now. Favorite MJ song?
PYT.
Okay. Favorite non-MJ song?
No idea. There's a million songs I love.
Fair enough. Would you like to watch it live or watch it at home, no matter what it is?
Oh, at home. All day long.
Home.
I don't like people.
Rock or pop?
Rock.
Okay. Work or play?
Work.
Favorite TV show?
Sorry, favourite?
Favorite TV show?
I don't really watch TV. It'd be something on Netflix about killing loads of people.
Fruit or veg?
Chips are a veg, right? Veg.
kind of, eventually. Bath or shower?
I'll shower. I ain't got time for baths, man. Too busy.
Drunk or sober?
Depends what day it is. Drunk.
Nice. And do you have a favourite food?
Yeah, burgers. I like burgers.
Burgers. And that's time. Well done, sir. You did really good. Most people sort of stumble on a few, but you obviously watched some of these.
I know.
Like, I'm ready.
I know what I like and I know what I don't like, mate.
There's one I want to ask you, and I remember asking Shane, and it's the funniest answer I've had on this question. So I'm going to ask it to you as well. I asked Shane, and so I'll ask you this as well. If you wasn't called Matt, what would you like to be called? And
Does it have to be a male name?
I'll tell you now, Shane's answer, apparently, before he was called Shane, there was a possibility he was going to be called Wayne.
Ooh.
I mean, it's not a big difference in the slightest, but it's a big enough difference. like literally they went, oh no, not the name Wayne. No, that's not going to work. Shane, though. Oh, that's the one.
Bob on, mate. You know, my mum always used to tell me a story that it was something like the midwife or something. She always used to call me a different name, but you know what? It's Claire. I haven't heard that story in years, and it's gone now. Probably Tony or something. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know, man. I'm very happy with the name Matt. I'd like to keep it. It
works for you, especially as your middle name's Alan, so everyone calls you Matt Alan.
Matt Alan. Yeah, I've had some really bizarre questions about that.
Have you ever had any like really like dodgy nicknames or anything? Words that can be said, bearing in mind.
I've been called a few horrible things. No, I haven't had any horrible nicknames. I got teased a little bit at school when people. It's weird, isn't it? When people found out I could play drums, But
really got teased? That's a cool thing.
Yeah, no, most people were cool, and fortunately for me, the hard lads were cool as well. So the ones that teased me got beaten up, and I was like, "Well, I ain't going to help you because you called me a name." So horrible, really. No nicknames.
I had before we move on, I had a nickname at school, and it was so random. But I remember getting into a fight once, only other time I've had a fight, and nobody actually hit each other in this fight in the slightest. Good. And this kid just kept stealing our tennis ball that we're playing football with, and I was like, "Just give it back." And so I started doing all these like proper like Danielson crane kicks at him. From then on, and not often, but it would crop up every now and then. Honest to God, my nickname was Red-Headed Ninja Ferret.
Oh, that's amazing! I thought you could say Danielson.
So random. So like random, because I was a little bit ginger and I'd done a bit of karate at somebody. Amazing. Which wasn't trained, just watched off a television, and my nickname from then on for a while was Red-Headed Ninja Ferret.
That's unbeatable. I couldn't even make something up like that.
No, I know. Good. And that's where it's true. Honest to God, yeah. I used to do a lot of cartoon drawings and stuff. I even drew a character that I then called the Red-Headed Ninja Ferret. I was like, it would make a great computer game. Or like a kids' TV cartoon.
I was just going to say Nickelodeon are all over that right
Must
now.
Be. So trademark now, just in case. So we've talked about like some of your early memories of the show and things and stuff like that. Have you got, obviously this is sometimes my favourite moments, but have you got, first of all, a worst show that you've done with us? Without embarrassing specifically clients or venue names, but tell us about it.
No, it was completely our fault. The venue were great.
Okay. Is this the one that I'm thinking of? Not in this country.
Oh no, that was on the list. I wrote a list. Cool. I had about 30 of them. Okay. No, I didn't.
You've only done 29 shows.
Yeah. Yeah, I realised one of them was a dream. No, I, I, I had a little think, and it was probably really actually, yeah, the worst moment for me, really.
Wow.
I don't know how bad it was for everyone else, but for me, I was just like, oh, this is I'm learning a lesson right now. And we did a gig at, I'm going to say, well, it was at the Crescent in Peterborough, and
Okay.
it was probably sold out more than likely. It was fairly early on. We're going back a few years
Yep.
now. It was when we would start off with Jam Medley. It was them
Yeah.
days,
Early days.
and I was controlling the MacBook. You know, I've never really done that before. I didn't know much about it, and it was just a case of pressing spacebar. You know, and the show
Yeah.
goes. Um, but I learnt a really valuable lesson that evening, and that was, don't presume everything's working. And I presumed everything was working, and the track came in. I don't want to go on too much about it, but you know, I'm sitting there. You know, I'm sitting there waiting for some clicks or a cue or something like that. So the house lights go down, the track comes in, thinking, oh, yeah, this is great. I can hear the track. Yeah, no problems. You come out, do your thing. But I think you were doing your thing behind the screen. Screen comes down, and I'm waiting for Lee Turner to go, well, whatever you used to
Yeah.
say.
Yeah. 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 Here we go.
But
This is the opening medley in 3, 2,
yeah,
1.
yeah. Here we go. Opening medley in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. You're not hearing anything, are you? No, you're not,
Yeah.
because I haven't said it, because it's not coming through.
Wow.
And we did now the Jam medley was probably almost 10 minutes.
Yeah, it is.
Um,
It was back in the day. Yeah, the opening medley.
and that felt like an hour,
I bet.
because I had nothing in my ears
I
up to
think
the
I remember because it's happened once or twice. Things like that. I mean, when you're
Mm,
doing this so often,
mm,
just technology is always the bane,
mm,
and it's always been said to me, don't prepare for like if it goes wrong, prepare
mm.
for when it goes
When?
wrong, because it will at some point let you down.
Mm,
It's
mm,
just nature. It's just
yeah,
it's just what live performance is. It's something will let you down, and almost
mm,
definitely it will be technical based.
yeah.
And I remember, certainly it might have been that time, but certainly at least on one of the other occasions, I remember looking at you and looking in the eye and going, "Are you all right?" Like
Mm,
that, as if to say, "What's your problem?"
yeah. This is
You
terrible.
sound awful. Like, have you
Mm,
ever done this before? Like, but no, I remember looking at you, and then you immediately go, and I just immediately
mm,
go, watch my feet, and
mm,
standing there kicking the time so
mm,
you've got something as to
mm,
time yourself to.
mm.
Because anybody who
I,
hasn't drummed with these elements that we have with the show, a drummer, whether there's a click track or not, is the absolute pulse and heartbeat to any song. It times everybody, it times the players. Even if they've got a click, there's still an element of the drums that they're relying on. They're relying on the drummer to tell them when a fill happens, when a stop, when a start happens, all of these things. Even the performers as the singer and stuff, you are, because I at the beginning of any gig, what do I always say to you?
what about counting you in, or?
Counting me in on
Mm,
everything, because I that way I know when
mm.
it's coming straight in on any stop or
and
start. Count me in, because
and I,
you can't
you
just
know,
guess it.
yeah, and I shout them out as like, I don't
Yeah,
care
yeah,
who
yeah. No,
hears
you're
me.
great. But
You
if
know,
you haven't got your timings, then none of us have got our timings. So I remember
no,
looking at you and thinking, ah, he's in
it's,
trouble here.
mm,
Something's happened. So I
I was
remember
in
just
bad
saying,
trouble.
I'll stand in a place where you can see, and I'll stay there and dance
Mm,
and whatever. But watch my feet. I'll just
yeah,
click you. That's your
yeah,
timing to give you something. And you did. You
mm,
got through it. I remember us getting
mm,
through it, and then it was
yeah.
fine after that.
I think actually what we did was you actually, whether we're thinking of the same show or not, I'm not sure, but you did make an announcement. You were so professional. You did make an announcement. You said, okay, we just need to check something here quickly. We've got a bit of a, did it in,
I think while
you
you
know,
checked it, I probably just spoke and talked to everybody.
yeah, I
I think
can't quite, it was a
probably
bit of a,
Shane would have checked it. So
yeah, it was a bit of a, maybe my brain has tried to forget as much of it as possible. But, that was early on. And that has just taught me to just be more prepared, because the thing is that you know, when I'm playing in a covers band or a function band, I click in and we play.
Yeah.
And if someone forgets to go to the verse, well, we'll do it the next time. But what we're dealing with is screens, yourself,
Yeah.
dancers, lights. If
There's
you
so
can't
much.
forget,
There is
you
so
can't
much.
forget.
And it might well to a lot of people be simple as, well, you only press his space bar to start it all. What's the problem? But it's not just that. You're setting yourself for the next song. You're getting yourself in the right mindset. Okay, well, okay, because there's so much that goes into playing an instrument, but also especially drums, because everything's different each time. It's not, well, I'll just play those strings. Now I've got to move my arms and legs in this way now and this way, and it's different for each one to some extent.
The thing is as well.
And I
Sorry, I
was
was
going
going
to say what it is like,
to.
if you're not used to this element, so just to fill people in, we, like I mentioned earlier, we have extra musicianship and backing vocals and things, and there's a click track. For anybody who doesn't know what a click track, it's a metronome basically going, just timing everybody to the music, which the drummer keeps to, and sometimes the other musicians will have that in their ears as well, but other times they won't, and then they're relying on the drummer to time them. So all of that's happening, and the screens that you see that interact with the show, that all comes from this one laptop, if you like, or we have two of them as one as a backup, and it's all run on a program called QLab, and you hit spacebar for each song to start it all, so it's all synced and correct, and so everything happens in the right order. When you're not used to that element, and it's also precariously placed next to you, and you're high up and you're aware of knocking it off or hitting it or whatever, it is.
I've turned around a couple of times and I've been like, holy moly, if I hadn't have turned around there, that would have been on the floor.
Yes. Because of the vibration of everything as well. People, there's a lot of noise on the stage and a lot of bass and vibration, and these things tend to move a bit at times. But when you're not used to having that there in general, it's a distraction, and it's very it's something that you're constantly then, oh, this is an expensive bit of kit, I've got to be aware of it and whatever. So yeah, I totally get it.
There's a lot that, when I first started doing your show, I'd never really done I hadn't done a show actually at all, I don't think, with dancers and
Yes.
choreography and screens. Now, I mean, I've been playing for years and years and years up until that point, and then I was like, okay, I've got to now figure this out without it, without my playing being altered. I've still
Yeah.
got to play the songs. I've still
Yeah.
got to play for the parts, which in a lot of cases for the MJ stuff is groove based.
Yeah.
If you don't get the groove right, then you've had it anyway. And then the other thing is you've got the click in your ear, but then you've got voice commands sometimes as well. With the later stuff, which is crazy, really,
I
you've got
apologize.
two different voices.
You can blame me. You can also blame Lee, because I'll go to Lee with a great idea, what I think's a great idea, and then he just blows out of the water and makes it 50 times better, but also 50 times more complex for you guys. And I'm like, this is brilliant. Listen to that and that and that stop and that. Oh yeah, and you're just like, oh, I give it to you guys, and you're like, oh God.
Yeah. I get the watered down version because Shane hears it first, and then he's able to tell me in a quite a relaxed way at that point. But and the other thing is that which again I've not had any experience of is more so maybe actually with new songs when we put new stuff in the set, like Another Part of Me and stuff like that. You'll get this, hey, we're going to do this intro. It's got, it's going to be this kind of thing. And then I with Shane, and then he'll say, well, it's kind of got a bit, oh, great. And we do it, and then he'll just record it a little bit or something, and we'll listen back and go, yeah, that works really well. And then 2 days later, I get a phone call from saying, yeah, Jen's seen it, and and then but they're going, bah, bah, bah. And at that point you're going, and it's like,
yeah.
Oh, and now I've got to think about, I can't take it personally.
You've got to hit. You're accentuating dance moves now.
Now it's, well, hang on a minute. I've got to play that accent when they do this move or they do that move, because that's going to work. That's going to look the best.
Yeah.
It's irrelevant what I've concocted in a room on my own. And then you
Over the
get
course of a month.
yeah.
All that's out the
And then-
window. Why wasn't
Yeah.
Jen here when I was doing it?
And then you get, but that's the thing. It's all this is the thing. It's all learning. You learn every gig you do, every different situation you're in, you learn. And the thing is that I enjoy that. Yeah, I don't
Massively.
I don't get that back and go, all right, there's a stab on the hand, is there?
Well, the cool thing is that when it then happens and you see it all in place and you watch some footage back of it or whatever, and you sit and you go, oh, that totally makes sense. Look at that.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
mean, the
Yeah,
start of
absolutely.
Another Part of Me is one of my favorite parts of the show. And I'm not even in it other than on a screen with some special effects around me. But I love it. I absolutely love it. Especially now that we've got the really cool repulsor gloves for the girls, like the Iron Man style gloves, and they're all working really good at the moment. And I was gutted because going back to the last gig we did, the Halloween gig, we were supposed to have 2 dancers on, and sadly, they were in a car accident and couldn't get to the show. Things. It's another thing that you have to keep in mind. Things happen all the time and changes, and you've got to make decisions on the spare of the moment and just go with it. So we went ahead with the show, obviously, still with just me and the band. We've done that on other bookings before. We've done multiple different versions of the show, but I was gutted because we had the new intro to Thriller, which was super cool and going to be great, especially for Halloween. And I've got these repulsor gloves all working great. And I was like, this
And
is
the screens were great. We had massive
the
screens
screen
behind
was
us.
massive in there and right above us. It was really interactive with us. So I was just gutted, absolutely gutted that they couldn't be here. I was just like, I mean, obviously, immediate reaction was, I really hope everyone's okay. Both, with the dancers and anybody else involved. That was my first reaction. And then I was like, oh, come, like on the phone to Sync, this has happened, obviously. I know that you spoke to them. Have we got reserves that are still going to be able to come? This is like 3:00 in the afternoon. And we always have reserves ready to go if necessary. But normally a reserve would get called in if it's going to happen at latest the day before, not the afternoon of the gig. And it was just wasn't possible to get them there. So I was gutted. So they will wait for another day. So
yeah. So that's yeah, that was one of my worst moments that when that happened. But like I say, I've learned from it, and since then we've never done a gig where I haven't at the very least checked the intro, just to make sure that I'm getting because if we've had gigs where we've got 3 or 4 songs in and maybe something's been out of sync or something's not quite, but at that point you're 3 or 4 songs in. That's a different.
You're relaxed and you're settled into it by then.
Yeah. When the house lights have gone down and there's nerves. I get nervous every gig. I'm always nervous, and I'm sitting there and I'm praying to any god that wants to hear me in my head. Where's that click? Where's that click? And as soon as the click comes in, we're okay. We're fine. Let's
Now,
go.
you say you're nervous at every gig. There's another little ritual you have at pretty much every show I've ever done. Literally, about 10 seconds before we're roughly due to start, you will always go to the toilet. You'll be at stage side, then you'll go to the toilet, always literally seconds before, and then come back. What is that? Is that genuine, like, oh my God, now I need a wee? Is it a case of, just in case I need a wee, I'll just go and check, like you do with your really youngest kids, like before you get in any car journey? Or is that something that's a ritual?
I think it's it's probably got into like a really bad habit, a really bad wee habit. I mean, crikey, I'm 43 and I've got a bad wee habit.
These things happen. These things happen as you get older.
I think the other thing is that, yeah, it's nerves, 100%. It's nerves, and the closer you get to the gig starting, for me at least, the more I need a wee. I'm like, what? Oh, now But I
I'm
did a
worried
wee like,
because as you get older, this is going to happen more and worse. Like, you know, it's
oh,
going
I
to be
won't
like
care so much then.
halfway
I'll just
through the
wee myself.
intro. No, gotta go.
No, I'll just wee myself for that, but I don't care. And the other thing is, I mean, years ago, it hasn't happened for, I can't even tell you how many years, but I've done gigs where I've got 3 or 4 songs in and gone, I really need a pee. Now, the thing is that that's pretty bad if you're standing up playing a guitar and you
Oh
can
yeah,
kind of walk it off a little
yeah,
bit.
yeah.
And it, mate, I've had Shane turn around to me on more than one occasion and just look at me and go, and he does a little sort of jiggle.
It shakes it off down one leg.
Yeah, he's gone. But it's, I mean, hey, I don't stand up, I don't play guitar or anything like that, but sitting down when you need a wee, and
And you're jiggling your legs around as well. Yeah.
And the gigs that we do are fairly big, and the bass will be rumbling. I'll have my bass drum, mate. I'll have my bass drum through a monitor, and what I say to the engineers, and they're always great. I always say, bit of kick in the wedge. Blow a bit of air at me. I can feel it. You got to feel it.
Yeah,
Little
yeah.
gig. And all them things combined when you need a wee is to hell.
For me, because obviously we do some gigs, not so much the theatres and things, but some gigs, maybe you're at a festival, whatever, and there's no access to a toilet that's not in public. Like I've done holiday parks and stuff where your changing room's on the stage, but there's no access to go anywhere other than come out the change room, across the stage, down and through halfway to the back of the room and go to the toilet. And
My worst
sometimes
nightmare.
there's been times where I'll stick a hoodie on and stick it right up, and you look even more
I've seen
of
you
an
do that.
eyesore. You look even more sort of like dodgy by doing that. But other times I'll just hold it. And there's been times where I've literally been seconds away from wetting myself before going on stage and doing an hour show or whatever, and just for the sake of not wanting to reveal the look before I go on stage. But once I get out on stage, no matter how desperate I've been, and there's been times when I've been like, you can ask some of the dancers, I've been busting, like jumping up and down a spot going, oh my god, it's going to happen. And then just go out on stage and your focus and everything else just takes it away. It's totally a mental power to stop yourself from wetting yourself somehow.
Well, isn't I mean, the thing is that let's we're just talking about wheeze right now, but let's
just two 40-something-year-old men talking about wetting themselves.
I mean,
if we can get some sponsorship from Tenor Ladies,
mate, I'd have it. Come on, bring it on. The thing is that it's like, okay, so a couple of minutes, a couple of seconds for me before we go on, it's like, I've got to have that last week, and
just
then
have a try.
The thing is, you think about it, like kind of like what you're saying there. You think about it, and then I go, hang on a minute. I did the second set, packed all my gear away, drove for nearly 4 hours, and I didn't need a wee.
Yeah, it's a mental thing. Because I get that before. I don't want to go too far on this tangent. It's a bit weird, but car journeys, like I'll drink lots of water, and there'll be times when I'm absolutely busting and there's nowhere safe to pull over or services or anything. And then I get past, I hit through this wall, I'm all right again. And you're like, what are you doing? You literally, I was literally like pushing myself out the seat, clenching everything so that I don't wee myself, literally going, come on, just 11 miles. Oh, what? Oh, like that, literally. And then suddenly it just goes, nah, you're right. And you just go,
don't worry about it.
I've probably got a problem, but I don't know. But it's only in the car. I'm not sat at home suddenly going, oh, like just madness, utter madness.
I wonder if, I think it probably a little bit of ritual with me as well. It's I'm very, everyone says they're OCD now for some reason, but there's just certain things I do, and I have to do them in a particular way. And I think if I don't do it in that way, then something won't go right. I don't know. Maybe on that Peterborough gig, I didn't need a wee before.
Wow.
I don't
Well,
know.
I said ritual because you get sports people that will wear only one set of socks or a certain pair of pants or whatever it is on really important games or any game, because that's what they wore when they scored their first goal or had their first win or whatever it is. So
Yeah.
we talked about the worst stuff. Just tell us a little bit about some of your funniest moments and memories of the show, both on and off stage.
Well, again, I got that question on an email, and I've got to be honest with you. I immediately thought, actually was of Shane, because he just cracks me up.
Yeah.
I know it sounds a bit, kind of vague, let's say, but
Change your funniest moments ever.
but it's there's so many of them times with him.
Yeah.
The thing is with Shane is that I'm where I am on the stage, I'm kind of pretty much beside him.
Yes.
Now, there's a lot of times when we're in the dark a little bit more than what you are.
Yeah.
And it'll be something that you say, it might be something that the audience says, it might be a little stumble or a trip. He's here, and all I can see, so from this side, all I can see is the shoulders start going,
Yeah.
and then that's it. The thing
I
is with Shane,
remember-
when he starts laughing,
I remember
just
doing a gig with him where, I mean, obviously done lots of gigs with him over the years, and it will just be the most random thing that makes him wet himself laughing.
off.
But there was one where he was teching for me at a restaurant. And he gets to the moonwalk on Billie Jean, and as I'm moonwalking across, my heel gets caught on something like there was like I don't know, I want to say it was almost like a glass manhole in the middle of the floor. I don't know what it is, and lights coming up in or whatever. But as my heel hits, obviously I'm getting a bit of pace and I'm going across. My heel hits, I carry on, the heel of my shoe's there, and I just carry on past it. And I was like, oh, what happened? That feels weird. And it took me the rest of the song to work out, oh, that's my heel on the floor there. Oh, God.
Mate,
He was dead. He was absolutely dead.
It's a shame that is gold.
Anyone else would have gone like, oh my God, you lost your heel, you knob. But Shane, literally for hours, like I couldn't look at him. Every time I looked at him, he'd just crying, laughing. And I'm like, you're right. He finds the most random things utterly hilarious.
The thing is as well, though, is
It's
that
great.
when that happens and when you're on stage, it's difficult to get out of it.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you're 2 or 3 songs in, and it's like, man, we've got to rein this back in, because I'm having a little bit of a cry. Shane's normally it's the person that kind of gets, doesn't see so much of it would be the bass player, because I'm in between, I'm the buffer. But even sometimes I've turned around to Higgs and I'm crying, I'm like, man, he's lost it.
Yeah.
He has lost. But I mean, he always plays a great show. He never, he doesn't lose it.
You'd never know it. That's the funny thing. That's what I mean, me and Cheryl were talking about it when we did the interview, when we did her interview. We will do things on stage around each other or to each other in a jokey way, because when you're doing this night in, night out, sometimes you need to do things to keep it fresh for yourself. And we'll do things to each other. Like, for instance, I'll launch my hat at Shane and hit him in the face with it, and I'll just die laughing because it'll literally just go poof. Or I hit the guitar. I think I hit his guitar and he played the wrong note. It was like down now, just because I've hit him with it. That's it. He'll be dead, but I'll be dead as well. I'll be myself laughing.
It's just I think the thing is that there's so many of them type of moments.
Yeah.
That just, it makes the whole thing. The whole thing is brilliant anyway.
Yeah.
Sometimes these things, and you might have even touched on this on one of the other interviews, is some of these things start in the dressing room.
Yeah.
And it's difficult then to get it out. You know, you're.
I mean, let's be honest. Let's be completely frank and honest. When was the last time we got on a flight and Shane didn't stink it out? And it's always silent and always violent. And it's just, yeah, it's early
Mate.
morning. It's like 7 or 6 in the morning. Nobody's been to bed.
No.
Everybody else on the plane is just like,
And then
so
bang.
tired. And then this stench comes
Bang.
out.
He does it in the
And you
van
know
all
it's
the
him. And he is wetting
He
himself
does it in
laughing.
the van all the time. If me, Nick, and Shane are in the van, again, the shoulders start going, and I'm like,
Yeah.
man, that window's coming down because I know what you've done.
Take the
You're a
roof off.
beast. You're an absolute beast. There's one other thing, actually, that's more stand out, if I may. And
Yeah.
I'm going to put you in the spotlight for this one.
All right.
Because, and this was really early on, but it stuck with me because I didn't really know what to do. I found it really funny, but I've actually found it more funny after, you know, since it happened. And we did a gig, you know, I think it was maybe at a holiday park. And as I'm going through this, the penny may drop.
Okay.
The stage was about 28 foot high. And
Okay.
I literally, well, I didn't even have a riser. I was up there and I was, God, man, I'm going to get a nosebleed up here. This is, what the hell's going on here? And they were doing, this was the gig where 50 or 100 people all knew the dance move. I don't know what was it a dance? They all
Was
knew
it
the
a
Thriller
Zumba
thing.
thing? I think it was a Zumba thing. I
Great.
think I know
It
what
was in
one
a
you're
holiday
talking
park,
about.
but it was a specialist night. I don't know. Anyway, so not only is the stage, you know, you've got to go up like 8 flights of steps just to get to the stage. So we're playing, I don't even know what song we were playing, mate. You were on hand mic all night.
Okay.
Maybe because the thing wasn't work. I don't know.
I
You
think
were
it
just
was
on
one
hand.
of those situations where, because you're on and off so quick and there's other
Mm.
acts, like it's like it's almost like a weekender, like things
Yeah.
like what the Butlins and the Pontins. It
Yes.
might have even been a Pontins weekend off the top of my head.
Yeah. Yeah, it could have been.
And we've done lots of these Butlins and Pontin weekenders. They're wicked. The audience is immense.
Oh yeah.
But I think
mean,
it was like a Zumba weekender. I think
Okay.
if I'm on the same page as you, and then like you said, they were all doing. They'd obviously learnt this as part of the weekend and was all doing Thriller in front of us.
It was crazy. Now, I don't know whereabouts in the gig this was. However, there's probably only one gig I can think of out of all the gigs we've done where would be the worst place to drop your mic off the stage when you're miles from the floor.
Yeah.
Now, the thing is with that is that for me, that's a double whammy because, like we were speaking about earlier, I've got the big old headphones on.
Yeah.
I've got the click. I've got your vocal mic. I've got the track. I've got, you know, the other guys probably didn't have anything because it was, you know, a holiday park.
Yeah, yeah.
We don't always have that luxury. So not only do I, out of the corner of my eye, see you spin 180 with a hand mic, then I don't see anything. Like all this happens in a split second, and then all of a sudden my ears go. And I'm like, what's that? Someone's got shot, and you've turned round.
Yeah.
Like, I've dropped the mic mid. You still had stuff to sing. We
You're
were
like,
mid.
I remember now. I remember like just going, "Can you pass that to me?"
You were
I
literally.
don't mind. You don't think you notice. There's nothing coming out right now.
It probably might just be a memory I've made up in my head, but I seem to just remember you being on all fours, literally leaning down, because the people below were like, "Well, hey, I'm only 6 foot. We need another."
Yeah. The problem is with anything I do with this gig, even if it's midwinter outside, like I've done fireworks nights and things, I still sweat my ass off because it's so involved, this show. Like just the dancing alone will make you sweaty, but when you're doing the singing and it's all the breathing that goes with that, that's a huge effort too. So I'm for what, without trying to seem too attractive, I'm quite a sweaty bastard anyway, like when it comes to these things. But then you get me in all the costume and the makeup and the wig, and the wig's like wearing a really thick hat constantly, and you lose. One way of losing heat is through your head, one of the main ways. So I've got a wig on, and then sometimes a hat on that too, and then you've got sometimes 2 or 3 different layers of costume and stuff. It is hot, and some of those costumes aren't light. My opening jacket, when we do big shows, it's all metal belts and things and stuff, and it's a fleece. It's a black fleece under stage lighting and dancing and going full out, and it is a hot gig.
Well, it's crazy because I'm sitting there in a t-shirt and shorts.
Yeah, literally,
not dancing,
sunning it,
not dancing, but sweating.
Yeah.
You know? And I ain't even got any hair. All the everything can escape.
But that's the thing, because you get sweaty, hands get sweaty, and sometimes it's rare, but it's always in the back of my mind. I will do something or whatever. Mike just goes woo like a bar of soap. You're just like,
yeah,
great. So,
and
it's live. That's what happens. So
that was the one I remember because it made me laugh because it couldn't have happened at a worse gig.
Yeah,
because we were so far from the ground.
Yeah,
it was just,
so funny. So we touched briefly on boxing. I know that's something that you've been a big fan of for as long as I've known you. Certainly, is it a big part of your sort of your hobbies, if you like, or your interests outside of work? Are there other interests that you have too?
I it kind of like we touched on earlier because really this is all I've ever known, drumming and gigging, and obviously doing the odd job, the odd crappy job, and some some good jobs as well. I've got a job I do now that I quite enjoy during the week. There's not an awful lot else to me. Not really.
Thank you so much, and that's where we're at now.
Yeah. Thank you. Good night. No, it's I again the boxing thing. It's come from my dad.
I've never been on a flight with you, and you've not had a boxing mag in your hand.
Well, that's also because I'm not great at flying, and I have to have something to keep myself focused on.
I don't think that's ever come up before, but certainly
I don't enjoy it.
Yeah,
I
got
mean,
used to it. But...
Yeah, it's not that I'm not frightened of it. Let's say I'm not scared of it, but it's like, well, we need to go over a lot of water, so we're going to have to get on a plane. It's like, well, I that's really the only other thing outside of drumming that takes my interest. And there's always a WH Smith before you get on the plane. So it's that, and I just read through that. And to be honest, once we're in the air, then it's kind of like, well, hopefully I'll fall asleep or something, or eat or something. But it's getting up and getting back down. But the boxing thing again, it's just I was obviously just very influenced by my dad because not only with the drumming, but when I was a kid, boxing used to be on ITV. Believe it or not.
I remember. I'm not a lot younger than you. You're only slightly older than me, I think. So I remember ITV boxing, and they'd have the big fights as well.
Oh, there was no pay-per-view or anything like that. So I just remember, obviously not really being able to stay up to see most of this stuff, so I was too young. But for my dad, that was the sort of what era would that have been? That would have been
the 90s, I'd have thought.
Yeah.
Certainly for ITV boxing was the 90s.
Yeah. Oh man, the names are escaping me now, which is quite embarrassing.
We're thinking Eubank and Ben.
That era, absolutely. Yeah, that era.
See, I've got a little story for you because I don't know how we've never spoken about it, but I actually went to one of the biggest fights in the UK. I went and saw Frank Bruno win the belt off Oliver McCall at Wembley.
And you know what? I'm going to say something for nothing. I watched that 2 nights ago.
Yeah, I watched. You obviously just watched the Bruno Tyson documentary.
I had to watch the fight again because I.
Well, I remember my next door neighbour knocking round literally the afternoon of that fight and saying, "We've got corporate tickets, but we can't go. Do you like?" To my dad, going, "Do you want to go?" And my dad went, "Do you want to come?" And I was like, "Oh my god, yes!" And
That's
going and having
incredible.
these really good seats. Like, we weren't like on ringside, but
No,
we
no, no,
weren't
no,
in the gods, and we could
no,
have
no,
got
no.
it. We didn't, but we could have gone in like this proper corporate box and everything. But we were out in the audience, and I remember it's the first time I've ever sworn in front of my dad back then, because the whole crowd, when
Mm.
Oliver McCall was coming out, I won't say the actual words, but was
No.
going, "Who that? Who that? Heard up and out of you." Just the whole, like 100,000
Yeah,
people in Wembley just chanting it at him. It
yeah,
was incredible, and he won it, which was
yeah.
amazing. And obviously, Ben fought that night as well. I don't think it was Eubank Ben, but certainly Ben
Okay.
fought that night.
I think the I think the thing is, I mean, I've been to I've been to watch the boxing at the XL, I think it was, with friends of mine, and I, I don't know whether this is just me making the comparison. It probably is just my thinking, but a lot of what boxing is and the events, let's say, not leading up to it and everything you'll go through to get there, but a lot of that is show, and
Massively.
it maybe that's why I'm so fond of that part, if
Yeah,
nothing else, because
but
it reminds me very much of what we do.
it's absolutely show. It's why it's almost always in Vegas.
Mm,
It's the capital of entertainment, Vegas,
mm,
when you think about it.
mm,
And it's why they do such elaborate introductions for these
mm,
fighters.
mm.
Um,
It just draws you in, and
yeah,
I can I can see the for me, I can really see the comparisons, or the similarities, but that it's like that's why I'm getting drawn into this, because of all the that's how I feel
yeah,
sometimes coming off stage, and I'm like,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah. We've just been
yeah,
punched in the face for like
yeah,
12 lots of three
yeah,
minutes.
yeah, yeah.
I remember at the Bruno McCall fight, and I remember them doing this laser display of all iconic London things, like when
Mm,
you used to do like sky
mm,
drawing of lasers,
mm, mm.
and they did Bruno's face in laser, and it was
Yes,
just
yes,
like, this is the
yeah,
90s. This wasn't like,
yeah, yeah.
that's a long time. They're talking over 30 years ago this was.
Mm,
And I remember
mm.
looking at that and going, that's incredible.
Yeah,
That
man.
looks
It's
so
just
cool. And the
how
whole
can
place absolutely going mental for this green laser drawing of Frank Bruno's face in the sky.
the thing
Just
is, it's like,
mental.
you know, this is why boxing just draws people in. People that um like myself, I don't have any interest in any other sport. Um
Okay.
the thing is with with boxing, for me, part of that has drawn me into it, I think. And you get the casual watchers. I mean, you think of, I don't know whether it will happen or not. You think of AJ Fury maybe at some point this year. Now, there's not going to be very many people that will say, "Oh no, well, I didn't watch that."
Yeah.
And that's
That's
not
as
just
big.
me being a boxing
That's
fan.
probably as big a fight as back in the day Tyson versus Bruno.
Oh,
As
absolutely.
big,
It's
because we've been
kind of a
talking
modern
about
day.
these guys. I mean, especially in the UK, that's as
Mm.
big as it gets, because
Oh
these are
yeah, yeah.
two of the biggest fighters in the world today, the most successful. They're
And
both homegrown,
they're both
and they're going
British.
to get it on.
Mm.
Like, I have to ask you, because it was actually genuinely was going to ask. Have you got an idea who you think might take it
Um,
if they make it happen? I mean, it has been signed, hasn't it?
that I've read things that say that in principle the contracts they're both happy.
Okay,
So that means basically that means they're both happy about the money that they're getting.
right.
That's kind of what that means. Now, as far as this is the other thing with those two fighters, at least, is that um, there's so many people that are on this side and so many people that are on that side that you could speak to 10 people and 5 of them are going to go this way and the other 5 are going to go this way.
Yeah.
So um,
I think everyone has
f-
their favourite as well.
of course they do. Of course they do. And the thing is that, you know, for me personally, I'm a big AJ fan, but I do 100% get the Tyson Fury thing. Of course I do. He's a beast. He's a
Yeah,
monster of a guy. What he's brought to boxing has you know, without him, boxing got pretty boring, to be honest, with the reign of the Klitschko's and such like. And then all of a sudden, this guy just,
he
you
brought
know,
character back to it. That's the
mm,
thing. He brought
yeah,
like somebody you could either love or hate. That's the
mm,
thing. Which
mm,
was people like Tyson back in the
yeah,
day. You even like Frank Bruno. You couldn't hate Frank Bruno.
no,
Everybody
of
loved
course,
him. He was just this
no,
cuddly bear.
yeah,
But Tyson, you could absolutely
mm.
pinpoint as the bad guy. And you
And the
need
thing
that.
is,
You need the good versus evil element to it.
yeah,
It is, like you
I
said, it's
mean,
entertainment.
the thing is with Fury is that he doesn't mind playing either part. He doesn't
Yeah.
mind being a baddie, and he obviously quite enjoys being a goodie.
I think he
Um,
plays the goody role more these days. Certainly in
yes,
his early days was very much the baddie. He was happy to be the hated guy.
yeah. I think the thing is as well is that it was probably just around that timing, but I was, for whatever reason, able to watch quite a bit of boxing back then.
Yeah.
And when I first was watching his fights, I can think of 2 or 3 fights that he clearly lost, but won. And
Right.
that's that. I mean, that happens. That's
Yeah.
boxing. Um, but I always think, yeah, I think I'm, you know, when he fights Wilder, I only want him to win.
Yeah, of
That's
course.
obviously, you know, he's the biggest, baddest guy around. He's going to do some business. You know, he's
Yeah.
going to do the
But
bizzo.
in that role, Wilder was made himself the bad guy with what he was
Mm,
saying and doing.
mm, mm.
So
And he got owned on the last fight. He got owned, and good on Fury for doing it in such a fashion.
yeah.
When it comes to AJ, um, I mean, for me, you just got to look at the guy and go, well, he's one of those guys that's constantly ready to fight. He's never out of shape.
Yeah.
He could probably fight 4 or 5 times a year without any problems. Whereas Fury is more maybe old school. Let's say the weight goes up, the weight goes down.
Yeah.
You know, he binges on. You know, they're just two very different people.
Yeah.
And I think maybe I lean a bit more towards AJ. I don't want to put them in the same bracket by any sense, but I lean more towards him. He just reminds me a bit more of the Bruno
Yeah.
type, let's say.
He's the
He's not
good
completely
guy.
clean
He's
cut.
the good guy.
Mm.
So
I mean, as you know, Bruno had a very troubled upbringing from what I saw on the documentary. Um, you know, Anthony Joshua, you know, he was a rascal, you know, around Watford way. You know, he was on a tag and stuff. He was a real rascal. But that's the other thing that I just find fascinating about boxing. It just turns these guys, it turns their life
yeah.
around. Um, some of them, unfortunately, only for a short amount of time when they're doing what they're meant to be doing, and then they, you know, things go astray
Yeah.
again. But just some of the stories are like, well, this is, you know, yeah, it just captures me. I mean, part of the sport, definitely in the, say, the middle or the welterweights, for me, part of the sport is, you know, they turn up and they make weight. You know, you turn up for your weigh-in and you can't afford to be a pound over or a pound
Yeah.
under. You've got to make weight. Well, that in itself is a sport.
Yeah.
You've
I
you've had
fail every time.
you've had 16 weeks or whatever it might be to be spot on. Like no, like not even like, well, I had a crumb of a cookie. Well, you've blown it, mate.
Yeah.
They're
Yeah.
spot on. That's just to make the fight happen. That's just for
Yeah.
the judges to go, well, you know, the organisers, sorry, to go, yeah, they can both fight each other because they're in that. It's different with heavyweights because when you get, it doesn't matter.
I've always had this mental image that as soon as weigh-in's finished, they're out eating the Black Forest Gatto and a Mackie D's. So it's like, doesn't matter now, whatever.
Well,
whatever.
that in itself is a tactic. That in itself is a tactic because, you know, if you put weight on, then you've got a bit more weight behind the punch.
Yeah.
They're definitely slightly dehydrated, I would think, because they never walk into the ring like you see them when they weigh in.
Yeah.
So they've definitely had to have a lot of water after. They'd probably go backstage and go, you know, 15 bottles of Evian or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's in a massive roundabout way. That's the only really other thing that sort of captured me. I'm so I've just got, you know, for all the years I've been playing, for all the years I've been gigging, I still have the bug. That's never left me. I will quite often get back from a gig and think, you know, I can't go straight to bed. You're still a bit wide. You've had a 3-hour journey and God knows how many coffees. I'll come home and I'll watch drummers YouTube and go, okay, you know, I can't. It's just there. So yeah. I'm one-dimensional, really, aren't I?
So before we wrap things up, obviously the last 12 months have been, well, for want of a better word, pretty much a very distressing at times, quite scary time. There's been ups and there's been downs for everybody. How's it been for you? How's Corona been for you?
Health-wise, it's been okay. Yeah, and what I mean by that is no one I know of immediately has been particularly ill. Friends of friends and acquaintances I've known who have been quite poorly and also had this what they're calling long COVID, which they just haven't got over it. Which, you know, people that I would say, well, they're very fit, still on an inhaler, you know, 3 or 4 months later. So that's you know, that's terrible. That's not good at all for me personally. I don't quite know why, but I've been okay right up until today at least. Work-wise, mentally, so work-wise, it's been devastating, and mentally, it's been the most difficult thing to date I've had to live through. As far as what I mean by that is for the length of time I've had. Everyone's had very difficult times. But you know, quite often difficult times are you find a way of getting over them. Now, if before I've had difficult times, I've done what I always do, play music. Unfortunately, the difficult time now has been not playing music. And not really having an awful lot else to channel my thoughts and energies into. So it's kind of, it's made me rethink a lot of things. It's made me realize how lucky I am in other ways. There's certainly a million people worse off than me. So I'm not going to make out that because I lost all my gigs, it's the most terrible thing that's ever happened. It's devastating and it's been really, really, really tough. But you gave me a gig. We did a gig. I did one gig. You know, that's one more gig than I thought I was going to do.
For the whole of Corona, it's been the only band show we've done. So,
and that's the only gig I've done.
See, I get what you're saying. Certainly, like, you know, it's, you don't want to sort of sit there and say, you know, well, it's the worst thing that's ever happened, knowing that there are people out there that have had a really, really bad you know, way worse off the back of it, have lost their loved ones, have lost their job, not just for Corona, but forever. Maybe lost their house, maybe lost all sorts of other things. So I know what you're saying by that, but obviously we only live in our own boxes. So I know what you mean by this way of saying it's the worst thing you've ever experienced as well. And that's perfectly fine to say that, you know, in a
I
way,
think
we all
I,
live in our own way. So
I
we live
think the
to
thing
our
is,
own means and we live to our own experiences. So
I think the thing is as well is that it's it's taken me a while, if I'm honest, to actually say how I feel.
yeah,
Because originally, if we think about this time last year, believe it or not, I was having conversations with people, you know, 'cause my diary was full. We had gigs, Bruno had gigs, I had covers gigs, I had function gigs. And I was having a lot of conversations that went along the lines of, it's going to be an awful 2 months, man.
yeah, yeah,
So um, it took a lot of months to go, yeah, I've got to face up to this now. And I think actually, and I have spoken to other people about this, I've not spoken to you about it. Um, one of the, it's a whole string of things for sure, but one of the gigs that knocked me the hardest, because probably, maybe just because it was right at the end, one of the gigs that didn't happen that knocked me the hardest was New Year's Eve. And that really, um, that set me back. I thought I was, uh, Halloween gave me that boost,
yeah.
gave me that focus, gave me something to do. You know, stopped me from just sitting about, basically.
Just to fill people in, basically, we did Box Park, as we mentioned, for Halloween, and off the back of that, literally that night, we started conversations about doing one of the other Box Park venues. I think it
Mm,
was Croydon for New Year's
mm,
Eve.
mm,
Tickets were on sale,
mm,
everything was being advertised, and
mm,
even when we went into Tier 4,
mm.
when London went into Tier 4, they continued to sell tickets. They were that positive. They
It
were
was
not positive as in like they were
no,
being silly, but they were
no.
trying to be that positive with the
Mm,
mindset as this gets reviewed again on the
mm,
30th.
mm,
If we go into Tier 2 or
We're on.
3, even 3, I think
Mm,
we could go into. If we go
mm,
into Tier 3, this can go ahead.
mm.
So it was um, yeah, I
The, the,
second you
the,
with that. I was gutted,
the,
absolutely.
the only way that we couldn't have done that gig was to have gone into a national lockdown, and it
Yeah,
happened. And I think the thing is that, um, again, I'm speaking to you quite openly about it. I don't want people to, whether some people might see this on Facebook or YouTube and stuff, and just go, what's, what's he talking about, man? It's just a gig, grow up or something. It's not just a gig. It's not for me.
it's not.
Um,
It's a way of
it's
life for us.
it's what I do, and when you've only had one gig throughout that whole almost year period, um, and then you think you've got another gig coming in, and the gig that we did on Halloween was so good, and they were really like what we did. Then I take a lot of pride in what we do,
Yeah,
and the way that we did that gig, and I get really excited about when we gig again, and um, there's the financial element, of course.
of course there is. Yeah, I mean that's the other thing. You've suddenly done what you love to do, what has been your career, and let's make this quite clear as well. A lot of people, you would have experienced this just as much as I have. Sort of will say to you sometimes, "No, that's cool that you do Michael Jackson. What's your real job?"
Mm,
Like that. And it's very easy for people to see that because obviously they only see it the weekend. So they're suddenly
mm,
thinking, what's he do Monday to Friday? So
mm,
much that goes into this that
mm,
actually this is a full-time job.
mm,
We do anywhere between 130 to 150 shows, this production in
mm,
particular, whether
mm,
it's me by myself or the full-blown stage show with the dancers, the band, the
sure.
special effects, the production team, everything.
Mm,
Um, but all in all, it's always me doing it, and I'll do anywhere between 130 to 150 shows in a normal year. So when that's suddenly taken away from you through no fault of your own,
No,
that's what has
absolutely.
happened to many people's careers. It's very hard to accept. But on top of that, when it's something that some people don't actually realize is actually your career, it's not just something you do on the side as well as another job, like you work in accounts at Lloyd's or whatever.
Yeah.
It's hard for them to understand how much you've lost. And as you said, it's the financial element. You've suddenly got to do something that's been your way of living and your livelihood for so many years. And then there's this little light sort of at the end of the tunnel going, oh, we might get to do another one, and then more after that, and then that gets taken away.
It's taken away from you.
Really, it's soul destroying. It really is.
It's like I was saying ages ago to you, you know, that I'm seeing it now on Facebook, you know, people posting up, I didn't know this was my last gig this time last year.
Yeah.
I didn't know, you know, no one knew. It's, you know, like I said, when we played that gig at Halloween, I knew that I may not get to do this again until May.
Yeah.
And already, maybe that emotion was somewhere tucked away, that when the gig didn't happen, I was like, oh, I kind of felt, I kind of felt a bit annoyed with myself for getting excited as well.
Yeah. Well,
You know,
I was
crazy, really, isn't it?
I was that way right the way up to that week in October, right the way up to that week of shows, because it was really teetering. And I did originally have 9 shows in 9 days, not 8 shows in that week. But one of them got taken away because one of the towns went into tier 3, and therefore it couldn't happen.
No.
So it was tough, really tough. So yeah, I feel it absolutely. I've been quite busy. I know I've not spoken about this, but I've been quite busy with other things outside of Forever Jackson that I've been building up. Certainly one of them I've been building up for a couple of years. It started, you know, before lockdown and Corona and everything was our new way of living, if you like. So I've been busy, and that's helped. But certainly this last lockdown, or the one we're still kind of in to some extent, I know kids have gone back to school now, that we're now starting to work our way out of, if you like. This has been the toughest one, I think, because we've had throughout all the other times, we've come out a bit, we've had a little taste. And then the last time it was just a month of a lockdown. And then we came out, started to come out again. So, oh, cool. Then it got taken away. And it really, for me personally, was just like, really?
It's devastating. Yeah,
I'm one of those people that like to stand on my own 2 feet, and pay my own way and look after my family and stuff. And I have had to have help over this time. At times, fortunately, not often. And you know, only once at the start of everything, back in around about April last year, and literally 1 year later now, I've had to ask for help again because it's just too much. Like everything else I'm creating is a slow process. It's a marathon, not a sprint. It's going to build up over years.
I think the thing is that, you know, obviously there's going to be people out there as well that, again, I'm not saying this in a disrespectful way whatsoever. There's going to be people out there that have been on furlough for a year and that are still on furlough, that maybe only a small percent, but maybe don't really like their job, but are still getting a wage every month. And they might be not enjoying what's going on, but they might be sort of quite like,
it's giving them a chance to think about it and go, actually, I need to think about a new job or move on from this.
Well, but also whilst they're getting paid a full wage, you know, that's I can't imagine how that would feel, because I've never. Well, it didn't happen in this in this time of, you know. But I think, for for me, for us guys, whatever, it's it's I don't want to do anything else.
Yeah.
I've never really done anything else. I do have um, a job that I do outside of playing, but
But
it's very,
it's still very much related, isn't it? Because obviously you work with Yamaha.
it's kind of almost, yeah, it's so closely related that sometimes it almost feels like the same job.
Yeah.
Because you know, I'm lucky, man. I get to meet some of the guys that I grew up wanting to be like, and now all of a sudden I'm working with them and stuff like that. So I've been very lucky in that respect, and I do still have some. They've been great to me. I do still have some work. I've had to change a bit what I'm doing for them.
Yeah.
I've been doing a lot of deliveries, obviously, and stuff like that. But as far as I think really what I'm getting at is that I don't want to change my career.
No.
I'm very happy. At the beginning of March last year, what I did was incredibly viable,
Yeah.
and it felt like by December of last year, what I did wasn't viable. And the thing is that both the jobs I did were very closely related, so they were both affected in quite a big way.
And I think sort of before we wrap it up, I think with that in mind, the thing is, when you go from something as viable and something that for me was the sole income for my household. My other half doesn't work. She looks after the kids. We got two young kids. She's now in the process, now that they're both at school full time and settled. She's now in the process, or was in the process, towards the back end of 2019, looking for work and getting into work. And she'd started to do volunteering at the school. Then
Oh,
COVID came in, and that just changed everything. And she's
yeah.
not really worked since.
Yeah.
But when you have an income that isn't just viable, but is the sole income of your household, and as looked after them, to then go from that to then feeling like you said in December, kind of like, have you, in my mind, there's been a few times like, have I made bad choices? Have I should I have done other things, like, or should I have had backup plans? Who was ever going to be sat there going, well, I probably should have had a decent backup plan for if suddenly a
There's a
pandemic
pandemic, a global pandemic.
isn't on a stage anymore. But
Mm.
when you, like you said, when you have been more than viable, when you have been capable of providing off that business, and it, year on year, it's not like, oh, that year was good, but the three before, God, it's a
Mm.
bitter pill to swallow.
Yeah,
So,
I think kind of trying to be now. There is a bit of light, and trying to be positive. Um, I've always been very grateful for the gigs I've done and the work that I've had, but I think that's just been added to by at least another 70%.
So just to finish on a positive then, has there been some positives that have come out of this period in your life?
No. It's all been rubbish. No, scrap that. You can edit that bit out.
Stay in. That's how we're going to finish it. Good night. Love to mum and dad.
Well, I'm sure like most other people with families, you get forced to have the family time, and I don't mean forced as in I didn't want it, but it's just like the first couple of months are a bit like, oh man, what is going on here? We're all around each other all the time.
Weekends at home. The novelty and the weather was incredible.
Yeah, we were fortunate actually.
This is weird. It felt odd. Now it's going to be the reverse. I've got so used to getting to the weekend and going, right, not working this weekend. I'm not going to do any more work now. I've worked all through the week. Right, what should we do, kids? Let's get the Lego out or something.
No,
It's
I think I think it's going to be not only not a shock, but a bit of a wake up call for us, but the
Mm.
people around us. I think it's going to, it's going to remind them, isn't it, of how often we
How
went around
crap
for
we
stuff.
are as family members.
Basically, yeah. I'm great on a Tuesday and a Wednesday.
Yeah.
But other than that, I'm terrible.
I'll tell you one thing. Let's finish on this positive. I am so excited because obviously Halloween was a real taste of getting back on stage, but especially being in front of an audience that has been desperate,
Mm,
thirsty for entertainment, wanting
sure.
to be that first time that we get back on stage in front of a properly non-socially distanced
Mm,
audience.
mm.
Oh, that puts the
I know.
hairs up on my arm thinking
Yeah,
because it's
yeah,
that thing
it's
of that show alone was fantastic. And like I said, I was really lucky that I managed to still do, even with everything in place, but in the little breaks that we had, I managed to do about 34 shows last year still.
wow,
But
brilliant.
that one topped them all. Um, because it was still under restrictions but they were so up for it. They were so
Mm,
like the atmosphere was amazing, partly probably because we were in that situation where we were just really making the most of it,
mm.
partly because they were making the most of it because they were in that
Sure.
situation. But
Yeah.
the idea that what almost a year ago we had just become the usual, just the day in day out, that's what happens on my work. I'm getting on stage and perform for people, and it's busy, there's lots of people, and yeah, they're great sometimes, and sometimes they're amazing.
Mm,
That first one or
mm,
first month of shows back
mm.
just make I'm
It's going
so
to be
excited for it.
it's going to be incredible. And like I say, for me, it's I don't feel like I tried not to take too many things for granted anyway, but definitely now that we've had the year that we've had,
Yeah.
then yeah, crikey, every show is going to be. I mean, hey, maybe 6 months down the line, I'll be like, oh, gosh,
Yeah, be moaning about
crying on the
it
way.
again.
Oh, I've got
I
to go up at
definitely,
6 o'clock, see the kids.
I honestly think, because there's sometimes you do a gig and it can be packed, but the audience aren't really,
Mm,
really there with you. Sometimes
no,
they're just
no.
there.
Mm,
Um, so I think one of the final positives I'll say that I think is going to come out of this is that it's going to make everybody, both performers and audience and crew and venues and
mm,
everything, really appreciate what we've all got and what we
yes.
all individually take out of this. And I
Mhm,
generally think there's going to be a lot of love and a lot of
mm,
real positivity and
mm.
appreciation from everybody involved.
Well, you know what, and I've probably, I may have sounded a little bit like a broken record over this last 2 hours or however long we've been talking. But we had that in the first place, and that is one of the things that I think has made the show what it is, and made the show go for as long as it has
Yeah,
gone for. So if you're already starting from that place, then based on what we've been through and what you just said there, then it's it's going to be even
can't
better, isn't
wait.
it, mate? It's
Can't wait.
going to be
Well,
even
on that
better.
real wonderful positive note, I think we'll wrap things up.
Yeah,
Matt, thank
man.
you so much. That's obviously a longer interview than I planned.
Yeah,
So,
sorry about
but
that. Chop it down. Get
it
rid of
was
all the rubbish.
just too flowing to stop it. It was just too much fun to stop it. So
Cool.
I'm very aware. We started this, just anybody, if you're interested, we started this at 9 p.m. It
That's
is
crazy.
now officially, when my phone doesn't even want to work, it's now officially 11:15.
That's
So
crazy. That's crazy. I can talk when I when I need to.
it's nice to talk and really, really nice to talk with you. I really
Yeah,
appreciate
likewise.
your time. I cannot wait to get back on stage with you. And
Likewise.
yes, and just for anybody who's interested, and especially yourself, I'm working on some things. So
Cool, man.
and
Really
definitely,
looking forward to it.
I'm hoping and praying that Box Park's one of them because we're in
Yeah,
talks, and I'm trying
great.
to get something quick for there because that's
Yeah.
the idea of doing something in those early stages that we've just been talking about, of everything coming back, but doing it for one of their venues, which we've done one show for, and we've talked about it so much because that's how much fun it was. I hope so. It'll be good fun. So
absolutely. And I can't wait to I can't wait to be back in a room with you. I can't wait to be back in a room with Shane and Nick or Higgs or whoever's on the bass, and it extends further than that. It's the crew, it's obviously it's the dancers, it's everyone.
yeah,
Just doing what we do, doing it really well, and just being in each other's company again.
oh, I love you, man.
I nearly said I'd do it for free, but I'm not going to say that.
Well, mate, thank you so
Brilliant.
much again,
Cool.
and we will see you soon.
Let's hope so. See you later, people.
Take care.
Bye.